all set? Okay, welcome to the Town of Haymarket work session for October 26th. Let's call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Schneider. Here. Costello.
Present.
Cater. Here. Larson. Here. Cannon.
Here.
Morris.
Here.
Weir.
Aye.
Okay, we'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have a little bit of an agenda change. We're taking this closed session and moving it to the end if necessary. So we'll go right into the opening up of the work session and start with the presentation of the CARES Act funds.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. So what I wanted to do is I invited the nonprofit organizations that were part of the disbursement fund. So today I've got Ms. Jessica Roop, the Executive Director for House of Mercy, as well as Eileen Smith and Mary Lou Robinson, which is with the Haymarket Regional Food Pantry. Ms. Smith is the Executive Director and Ms. Robinson is the Town of Haymarket representative. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to present them with the large check that we have and get a photo with you guys. And then if they want to provide any update, they can. However, we'll touch base so that I can get it out on social media and we can post all the incredible things that they do and where those individuals in need can reach out to, whether it's the address, the telephone number, websites, and all of that material will be available on the website as well as on Facebook. So what I'll do, I'll ask Eileen and Mary Lou if you guys can come up. I've got your check ready.
Mr. Mayor, do we want to hear something from them? Just a presentation just about what they've been experienced since COVID, the increase, the
Yeah, if you could let them,
I guess we're going to.
kind of give the benefits that they do and how hard, what the impacts COVID has done for them and having to try to, feed the extra families.
So before the pandemic, lovely council, we were feeding approximately 294 families a week. At this point, we are feeding in excess of 650 families a week.
wow.
Our numbers have not only grown in such staggering ways, but we also are attempting to feed the children who are out of school as well. So in addition to the 3 to 4 days of food, both perishables and non-perishables that we provide to the family, we're also providing breakfast, lunch, snacks, juices, and milks for the children for 4 days as well. So the money that we were previously using, you can only imagine how much more we're using. We did find some pretty significant breaks in the supply chain, and we still are seeing that in terms of the food that we need. So we are getting food from the Capital Area Food Bank, and we also have begun purchasing food from Sysco, who you all know, they sell to restaurants. Before the pandemic started, we did do quite a bit of purchasing from the local grocery stores as well as Walmart. They cannot help us right now. So we're having to seek additional sources. This summer we were very fortunate. We had 2 farms who provided fresh produce for us. Those clearly have run out since it's nice and cold outside. So we're looking for other places to get fresh produce for our families. So thank you very much for your lovely gift. I told Chris that we will have a nice accounting for you of everything that we spend. And most of it, I'm guessing, will be the food that I'm purchasing for the kids because that is very consistent. Every week I'm buying from Sysco for the children. So that's probably what you will see on the report. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if you could permit me, how far does your organization stretches? What area of coverage do you have?
We are mostly on this end of Prince William. We go up to Loudon and we go down through Fauquier to Culpeper. So we do not cover Woodbridge in Prince William, but all the rest of the county up and down.
That's awesome.
So you guys want to come up front here so we can take a photo? And Mayor, if you want to hand this to them. This way we'll let the council be behind you.
There was a cut Phototron out.
Starting to get the message.
One, two, three.
Can I ask one more question, Mary Lou and others? How much do you think, how long would 10,000 last, do you think? What is that? Is that a month, a week, 2
The-
months?
Well, I mentioned it will probably go for mostly the kids' stuff, because that's really, I mean, consistently every week, that's what I'm buying. I can tell you that prior to receiving your check, I had made 3 purchases, and I was up to about $8,000.
Oh,
So
wow. Okay.
this will probably last until before Christmas,
Okay,
I would guess. Probably 4 or 5 Cisco runs.
okay, thank you.
Yes.
If I could have a follow-up, Mr. Mayor. So thinking about post-December 2020, I'm sure you guys are still going to be affected. We don't know what is going to happen if another stimulus package is going to be coming out. Are you guys thinking ahead as far as how to maintain what it is that you have?
Well, we've been very fortunate. Honestly, the community has been very generous with us. We've been very lucky. We've received funding from you. We've received funding from the county. We've had some help from ACTS. What I can tell you is we are still seeing a significant increase week over week of people who are coming. When we were located, across the street, we were open 3 days a week. We are open 7 days a week right now. We give out food 5 days a week. So, I don't see this tapering off at all. I see it continuing and continuing.
May I ask a question? Are you in need of physical support in regards to volunteers?
We kind of ebb and flow
Okay.
with that. What we saw early in the spring when everything, all shut down, was many of our volunteers said they would not come help. We have seen, just in the last couple of weeks with these spikes, a slippage with the volunteers. So my answer today is no. My answer next week will probably be yes. We do have a significant amount of our volunteer base in Heritage Hunt and Dominion Valley Regency, and when things start to bubble up, those folks stay home. And I should also mention, we are 100% volunteers. We don't pay anybody. So we have right now over 1,100 people on our volunteer list, but I would also tell you that about 78 of them are actually helping us right now. So.
Mr. Mayor, if I could they not work with Chris so that when our paper goes out, maybe an article in there about the volunteers or stuff like that? I mean, can we help them advertise this for volunteers and stuff?
Yeah, we can work with them.
Okay. So if you would work with Chris on that and all, that, we want to help you publicize. We want to help you via our social media as much as we can, get out whatever we can to help you out.
And just one thing to add to Councilman Morris is, with me being part of the Rotary Club, actually, we are for, I think, the Thanksgiving initiative, will be a donation spot where people can drop stuff off.
Good.
So we'll be starting that, actually, probably this week, probably tomorrow or Wednesday. I'll do a social media post after I do these two. I was going to do one for the collection, because I've got the list of everything that was needed. So we'll do that as a partnership with Rotary and
Good.
Haymarket Regional Food Pantry.
That's good. Thanks, Chris.
Well, thank you. Yes, ma'am. All right, and then, so we also have House of Mercy here, who she is located, or they are located in Manassas. But I was going to go over their mission statement. It's something. Their mission statement is to provide food, clothing, education, and prayer for those in need, thus demonstrating God's ultimate love and mercy for those in our community. This is actually something that this group is very well a direct service as well. This is one where 91% of the money that they get goes directly to services, so it's a very good organization as well. I've got Miss Root here to speak about House of Mercy. I actually got the opportunity to visit, and it is a well-oiled machine, but I think she had some similar comments about the volunteerism and some stuff coming in assistance-wise, but I'll let you speak on that.
Thanks. Good evening, everyone. So if you don't know, House of Mercy, like Chris said, we're there to provide basic necessities for those in need. So our main objective is to provide food and clothing. Before the pandemic, we were providing to about 10 families per day. During the height of the pandemic and the stay-at-home order, our client need had increased 800%, so over 80 families a day. And it still remains at about anywhere from 35 to 50 families a day, depending. We're open 6 days a week, 5 days for the food pantry, Monday through Friday from 10 to 4, so anyone can just come on in. If they need help, all they have to do is ask. We don't ask for much, just an ID and proof of address. We don't have any geographical boundaries, although most of the people in need come from Manassas Park, Haymarket, Gainesville, etc. But we welcome anyone. There's no boundaries. We have also a thrift store, which helps to provide our clothing and any other kind of basic necessities people need. So if somebody is, say, coming out of jail and needs some kitchen appliances and furniture and things like that, we're able to provide that as well. We have a lot of baby items, car seats, baby food, diapers, wipes, which we're going to use some of this money for. And then, we rely also on lots of volunteers, and we are always in need of volunteers. So we have a great application process online. So if you know anyone who is interested, they can come help in any of our locations in our food pantry, in our donation center, etc. So I just want to say thank you so much for helping to support us during this time. Normally we rely totally on donations. And we've only had to supplement food purchases for about $10,000 a year, even though we're giving out $500,000 of assistance. And so far already, we're averaging purchasing $5,000 per month this year. So that's a huge increase for us. So this money will go towards that in helping to purchase food and baby supplies, diapers, and things like that. So this is really a great blessing, so we really thank you so much.
We'll take another photo.
Just get a cardboard cutout of me and put it back here.
Good idea. That was a good idea. I like that.
One, two, three. Smile. Thank you.
Is that just for the pictures or the meeting?
No, that's for me. That's for everything.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, I got a comment. That was a nice moment. It's great to see humanitarian and compassion efforts in process. Okay, we'll move on to the agenda items. First one, I guess we'll discuss anything that needs to be discussed since we beat this up pretty good, the budget for for the quarter.
So, yes, I would like just to kind of let everybody know where we're at. So if you go to packet page 12, where you've got the 4 separate columns, I just want to articulate that for council and anybody else watching, just so that it makes sense to everybody. What Roberta was able to do was it showed, based on the previous council, they adopted the budget May 26th, and that's what's on the farthest left-hand line when you see the dollar amount. So that's the first adopted budget the previous council made. Then in June 8th, because of COVID and everything else, we needed to amend it. So then we made some cuts to the budget. So that second column is the budget that was amended on June 8th. And then the third budget, or the third column, it was what was amended on October 5th. And that was solely for the amendment that we made for the CARES Act, which allowed us to start the disbursement fund, which is what we just gave out some of the nonprofit CARES Act funds. And then the last line, or the last column on the right-hand side, that is the proposed amendment that we'll have the public hearing on next week. So I just wanted to let everybody know that's what you're looking at when you're looking at that. So it's pretty self-explanatory that you've got those 4 items right there. And then at the very right, you've got the overall percentage change from the beginning to the end. So there's only a couple line items where you can see that it says got changes in between. So if you guys have any questions, I think this is very well done, self-explanatory from the beginning, which is in May, until now. And then we'll have the public hearing. And if anybody, residents or council members, you guys have questions for the public hearing, just let us know. Myself or Roberto will be here able to answer any questions.
Joe?
Just want to make a comment. I concur. I think this is a very good presentation. I like the way that it shows the evolution from the adopted budget to where we propose to go. So I look forward. Actually, let me just go back. And the pages before it, the staff report, I think really help explain all the different changes. I mean, it's a lot of moving parts, but I think Roberto and Chris have put together a nice package to help explain it. So I appreciate what you guys have done. It's a lot of work. So thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I initially had some questions when this first came about, and my questions to an extent has been answered, but I do want to make sure that those who were watching publicly knew that my questions were answered. But I do have a couple comments. Item 13 concerning the PD. I see the amount here, and it makes sense what you're presenting. But initially, from my understanding, this amount went to the admin side, which is capital outlay machinery equipment, went to admin instead of the police department. Correct?
Initially?
Initially.
No, the 31,000, you're talking about the 31,592?
30, well, I see here PD 42,500 is what we did, what we are hoping to do now, but then there is on item 18, the capital lease payment principal. 31,000, yes,
Yes,
31,592.
Correct, that was under the debt service. Could be tracked that way, but auditors have suggested to always track any expenditures that goes to the department should stay with the department. So that is something that, even though we are allowed to do it, when the CAFR report happens, they put it right back into the PD budget.
So my question is, we have had these vehicles now for how many years? 3, 4? 3.5 years. So in 3.5 years, were we told within the last 3.5 years that it should be under the PD and not carried the way it has been for the last 3.5 years? And if that was the case, was it ignored?
So it was always carried under the PD until last budget, when we were asked if we could move it over to remove it from the police department budget and put it into a debt service, since it was a lease payment. The auditor advice was that we could do that for the budget purposes, but when they work on the CAFR, it would be placed right back into the police department. We could have kept it that way, but we were asked for prior council to go ahead and remove it and put it as a debt service, so it was still being accounted for. But proper audit-wise, they would like to see it under the police department.
That's where I'm getting the disconnect, because if we have an auditor that we're paying who has a knowledge of accountability that's advising us where to put certain monies, but instead we're putting it where we want to put it, then of course, because that disturbed me when I saw this high increase in the PD. Because I was saying, in my mind, I'm thinking that the high increase for the PD should only have been the 42,000. And that's why I had questions about it. And then I started getting the proper information that the lease, the capital lease, was not placed under the PD as it should have been. The rest of the council, I hope you understand where I'm going with this. Because that's why I really had a problem understanding why was it that there was so much money being taken from the PD, but that was not the case. The problem is accountability. It was not in the right place in the first place. Correct. So in addition to the 42, now you have 32,592 that's going back into the right place, and I'm sure this council and no other council can move it, because now we have the proper assessment of where it should be. It's proper accounting, especially if you have an auditor telling you where it should be in the first place. But that's not all, is it? Because the total that's here for the PD is 250,333. And that's packet page number 8. So outside of the capital lease payment of 31,592, what else was in the wrong place?
Or not accounted for.
Or
First, I want to make clear that the auditor does, they advise us.
Advise,
But,
yeah.
but we were advised, so it's not that they weren't.
No, I'm not putting the blame on you at all. I'm just saying if we have professionals who come into this place to help us, especially for accountability purposes, I'm glad that we are at a place where we're growing.
Right.
And we're doing it the right way.
The only other increase that showed up on the PD was mainly the Delaney detail. That is something that was a contract. On the 29th of June, there was one more budget amendment we were requesting to do. That was to address the Delaney detail, along with I believe the civil disturbance expenditure line items. We did not have a quorum, so we could not actually go through with that. But yes, the Laney detail is something that we are just trying to account for it, to make sure that it is being accounted for correctly. So when it comes to the audit, it is a pass-through. Let me make that clear. It is a pass-through. But even so, being a pass-through, it is something that we have to account for. It's just proper accounting. And we do receive the revenues, but it does get expended out. So we have to appropriate for it.
Thank you so much. And I don't have to ask if you feel comfortable with the items and where they belong, because I think this was always your recommendation.
This was a recommendation from myself and town manager, but like you all know that it is.
Understand. Don't say anything else. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Bob?
I would just point out a couple of other things, two other line items that were left out. That was the monies that we were getting from VDOT, the monies that we were getting from the DMV grant. And the long and the short of it is, if you, without looking at the cuts, if you look at what's been ascribed to the PD in terms of additional expenditures that were not in the budget, either had zero line items like VDOT, DMV, and Laney, or the capital outlay that we moved up. The difference between the adopted budget, what I would say is the actual adjusted total pre-cuts. You go from 801,577 to 918,513. So it's the difference of a little over 100. $117,000 that wasn't accounted for in the adopting the budget as adopted, that we programmed in so that there's full transparency as to what the cost of the department is without putting stuff in.
Well, that's where I had to disconnect the last time. I know you guys have cleared it up for me.
So we saw it went from 801 to 918 back down to 876.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, so this is pretty much the budget that we will be reviewing in the public announcement next week. So hopefully if there are any questions, the town staff is here to answer them for you anytime during office hours. Okay. We'll move on to special use permit, public notice.
So this is a informational item for tonight, just to let you guys know that we have a scheduled public hearing for next Monday night at 7 p.m. for the special use permit for a religious assembly at 6611 Jefferson Street in the rear of the building. It's for a small religious assembly that is going to have 2 services a week there, three, Wednesdays, Saturdays, and Sundays. Planning Commission already heard the application and has passed it forward to the town council with a recommendation of approval. So if you have any questions on that, feel free to let me know this week. I'm happy to gather information for you and get it ready prior to our meeting on Monday night. And I'm also here if you want to just stop in and have a discussion.
Yeah, I think last time we talked, there was some concerns about the schedule. I guess all those questions have been taken care of. Chris, you have something?
Yeah, it wasn't the schedule for me, or maybe it was then, but no, it's a different one. Is it the tent that is in the back of that building? It's not, right? It's not. That's not what they're asking for. The SUP.
No, just to use it as a gathering place.
The tent or the building?
The
The
building.
building.
Okay, because there's a tent. There's
I'm
a tent.
unaware of a tent. I will go check that out tomorrow.
There's a large tent that's at the back of that building with cathedral windows.
Huh.
Yeah, I've seen
Yeah,
That's
Bob.
a newer addition. I will go check that out tomorrow. This is for, there's a rear entrance at the back of the building.
Food pantry.
Correct, and that's where they would be located.
Yeah.
The large tent 2 weeks ago, Jerry Kennedy came and told us they'd be putting it up on a Saturday for an event they were having.
Okay.
I don't know, it is still up. It's
Yes.
still up today, but
Yeah.
this was like 2 weeks ago.
Okay. I just wanted to be clear that it wasn't
Thank
for
you
the
for-
tent
yeah.
that they were looking for the SUP.
He did not notify.
It's the old
the
pantry
town
property,
hall.
right?
Yes, but it's right by the door of the old pantry that the tent is. So I didn't know if there was some cross understanding as far as is the religious meeting going to happen in the tent, or is it inside the building itself? And Mr. Mayor, if I can follow up with, get a follow-up question. Who determines within the town limits if the space is habitable? Do we do any inspection at all, or is it just the fire marshal that gives the occupancy and we rely totally on the landlord?
So what happens is they'll apply, in this instance, they apply for their zoning permit, and once it goes through the process, and if it receives approval, they're then given the zoning approval to go to Prince William County Building Department, at which time they apply for an occupancy permit. So the building official will come out as well as the fire marshal. They do their inspections and they make sure that the space in which they're renting is up to code for the use that they are asking. At that time, that's when they'll get that occupancy permit for pre-existing businesses in town, just to kind of let you know how that works too. If they have an occupancy permit already, and they are going from one use to a very similar use, the county is able to work with them through a special program. If it's different, they do have to apply for a new occupancy.
Okay.
So it is fully inspected.
And the county gives those, they distribute those?
Yes.
Yes,
And
that is
do you-
correct.
Inspection.
And do you get a copy?
I do not get a copy. That's something I can ask them. I do get a permit log that lets me know every time one is issued.
That's good.
And the county's been really, really good for the last 2 years, 2.5 years, of refusing any application if they don't have my hard copy letter in hand.
The problem with that, though, is once they get the occupancy, they get a part of their occupancy, they get the number of occupants that can be in that space.
Correct.
But there is no way for us to manage that or even get involved at any level if they go over that amount.
That would be something, so let's just say hypothetically, a use is only permitted for 100. And we find out that they have 150 to 200 people in that space every week. Doesn't matter what the use is, but they have overcapacity. That's when I can get involved and I can call and I can put in a complaint. Anybody can call. A citizen, a person who's there in attendance can call the fire marshal or the building official and report it, because at that point it's hazardous to the safety and welfare. So all of us have the ability to report it and do our due diligence to do the right thing.
Do we know if occupancy letters are posted throughout gatherings like this? And I'm sorry for asking all the questions, but I won't be here next Monday.
You should always have an occupancy permit posted up in the business, along with your business license. So as zoning administrator, I have the ability to go into a business and say, I'd like to see these 2 items on behalf of the town. Building official can do the same thing, fire marshal. So we have that checks and balances, but they should always be posted, and the business should want to post it for their own safety and their own liability.
Fire marshals don't come out until after that year when they do their yearly inspections, so.
That, or if they get a complaint.
Right.
If somebody calls in and complains that fire exits are blocked, or, they might be over capacity, things of that nature, if I call them in and say I have some concerns regarding some of the structures or the use going on, exits, so forth and so on, they'll come out.
Most of the times, Mr. Mayor, that these, they're going to be assembling would be off hours for Emily. So I don't know if it's something that, it's not really on our hands. If something ever happens, it's not really on us. It's on the renters, leasers, and the building owners. But I'm wondering if it's our responsibility, just as a small town, to get to know more the people in a way where maybe our officers could do that look in. Just a thought. I'm not trying to add anything to the PD department. I'm just saying, because most of the times they're meeting Saturday night, Sunday morning, Wednesday night, our staff is off. I just want for us to start thinking how we can get more involved in knowing what's happening. Because right now in the town limits, we have 3 churches, Marshawn?
You have about
Got more than that.
4,
In the limits.
Yeah.
4 or 5.
Where?
You
Oh,
have-
5. Oh, yeah. I forgot Haymarket Baptist. Oh, my
You have
God.
Haymarket Baptist.
The biggest one.
You have Haymarket Baptist, St. Paul's. You have the church behind El Vaquero Piedmont Bible Church, I believe. You have Haymarket Church above us does office use, but occasionally we'll have small group gatherings. And then if this new one gets approved, that'll be your 5th.
Right. As everyone knows where I stand with church, I love it, but I think we need to make sure that we are doing our due diligence in thinking ahead to help them. So. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep. Any further questions?
Mr. I do have one, just, since the commission did not meet last month, I wanted to know if it'd be possible to have the draft minutes and the motions included in the information item. And Emily does this already, but just be asking for the staff recommendation on how to mitigate some of the impacts, so.
Okay, did you get that directive, Emily?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
The draft minutes for the planning commission meeting from this public hearing, correct?
Yes, ma'am, the one corresponding to the hearing. Motion and any public comment, so.
Okay, next item, the proffer amendment, public notice.
Yes. Another informational item coming from the Planning Commission, we will have a public hearing again next Monday on November 2nd at 7 p.m. for the proffer amendment at 14600 Washington Street. This has been noticed in the local paper as well as the certified letters mailed to the adjoining and adjacent property owners. The signs will go out tomorrow morning. I was waiting for our new sign lady to drop off the new ones. Doesn't look like they'll be in, but those will go up. So this is one that the Planning Commission has made their recommendation for denial. There is a lengthy motion by Councilman Weir from the Planning Commission that Marchant already spoke with us earlier. We will make sure to include that as well in the packet so that council has plenty of time to review where that stood. And if you have any questions, you can certainly let me know. Talk to myself, Chris, the liaison, as we're all here to answer
Will
your
you cut
questions.
and paste the code references that he used?
Yes.
So that we know what the codes are?
Yes, I can do that. I can do a staff report on the motion.
I was going to make a similar request, the draft minutes of the public comment and the motion, please, if it could be made available. PC, it's,
And I
Please.
guess the notice signs, they go on the property boundaries, right? So I'm assuming that'll be all on Blight and Washington?
So we'll have, for that size of the property, I put up two. I put up one on Washington and one on Blight Drive. And then for the one here on Jefferson, it'll go just here on Jefferson.
Okay.
Yep. And those will go out tomorrow.
So this is the same proffer amendment that was pushed through on the end of June? During the joint meeting?
So this is the proffer amendment that was originally submitted in June, in the beginning of June. It was later on amended on June 24th and resubmitted to the town on June 25th, at which we had a meeting scheduled. It came to the Planning Commission's attention that the proffer amendment that was resubmitted at the later date was not accurate with the public notice that went out. So we had to delay the review, re-public notice it for the Planning Commission, and have that public hearing at Planning Commission. So that is what happened back in August, at which time they passed it forward for a denial to the town council. And then to meet the notices, we're able to have it November for town council.
And if I can, just a point of clarification, the reason why it was not accurate, the notice was sent out and then the applicant was the one who altered their proffer amendment request. So,
Yeah, thank you.
essentially, they had requested to reduce the acreage by half, and then after the notice went out into the paper, then they reduced it to nothing. So that's what will be before you guys next week. And because of that change, it was a significant change, which re-triggered the advertisement and the public hearing for the Planning Commission as well as Town Council. So this was not an error on staff. It was, they had switched it up after we had already advertised it and Council had met on it.
I realize that if it was an error on staff, you guys would have apologized for it. So I've come to expect that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Because it's worse than the, if you were called out on it and then you were caught, and so you guys are doing really good in apologizing up front.
So yeah, if you have any questions on either one of those, I will be here all week and happy to answer any questions or help you better understand.
Thank you.
And that's geared towards us as well as the public.
Yes, absolutely. Door is always open for the public.
Okay. Any more questions? Okay, let's move on to, I guess, the communication plan.
Yes, so I had the opportunity to meet with a couple of our citizens this week, as well as staff, and wanted to just bring it to everybody's attention of what we discussed. The communication plan we defined as encouraging communication, engagement, and participation throughout our community. So figuring out a way to just making certain that our citizens know that they can come to town hall, talk to our staff, make certain that if there are any questions, they can certainly ask. We were looking at creating a succinct summary of important items for easy reference, like the town meetings, agendas, and minutes, to be posted via social media and our town webpage, with full minutes always being available on our town website. So with that, we were also talking about the idea of a town-wide emergency evacuation plan with a dissection of communication and referencing Chief Lands in regards to if something were to happen off the railroad tracks, how we would notify our community in a major evacuation. So that would be something that we would like to work on if at all possible. And then we did discuss welcome packets, and I know that we as a council prioritize that on the lower end of what we were looking to address as a overall, but wanting to make certain that we pick that up and maybe have our citizens let us know when somebody new is moving into our community so that we can reach out to them and welcome them, let them know certain things like you need a car sticker, town sticker, things like that. We would love to establish a community roundtable along with the creation of an advisory council and youth advisory that would mirror the business roundtable and allow more of our citizens to participate and get involved and support communication of events and happenings. Emily does have larger, new signs with larger postings coming, so we're excited about that. And then, you know, again, wanting to just get more involvement. I did enjoy sitting down with everybody. There was a concern, Chief Lands, in regards to failure of people stopping for pedestrians on the bikeways and crosswalks. So we would love to be able to talk to you about that as well.
We have crosswalks?
So that is where we are.
Okay.
If I can. Concerning the emergency plan, back in 2014, the police chief, the interim chief at the time, Greg Smith, was tasked with putting together an emergency plan in which he reached out to the fire chief, the sheriff's office, Prince William County, and he started a process in what to do if there was a major gas leak. It was one of the scenarios that we created in what would happen if there was a major gas leak on the train tracks. I think it is prudent to have the chief exploit or go through looking at how he would set up his advisory board, or maybe that's not a good word, but a safety committee where you because you know the fire chiefs, you know the guys who are closest who would respond. You could be tasked to get more information if there's an existing plan somewhere else where there's a train running right through the middle of their town, and possibly put together a plan. And it probably doesn't need to be detailed, but there needs to be a way how we communicate this quickly, effectively to all the residents, especially, I mean, none of us maybe know, maybe except Joe, the chemicals that travel through our town. And what if there is an accident, there's a major spill, and I think we would be behind the 8 ball if that happens and we don't have a plan. And in 2014, it was thought of, it was started, and I think with the changes in the PD chief of police, it went away. And I think it would be a good thing to maybe start tasking the chief to put together his thoughts and maybe have him run with it and present it to council as to what would he do and who would he bring in as advisors.
Can I ask a question on that? Joe, you probably know this. The railroad, they would, I'm not sure which company, they would have plans too for issues such as that. I just don't know that they have shared, they may have shared them with Prince William, but probably have not shared them with us. Because I know they have plans. I've attended a couple of meetings from where they did some things in the town of Manassas.
Yeah.
And I know they had contingency plans. But I don't know if, Chief, I don't know if you know anyone that with the railroad, with their security or whatever, that might have something that they can share with us so we don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
Just an idea, so.
You want me to take a shot at that, or you want to? Oh, okay. It's Norfolk Southern is the railroad,
Okay.
the freight railroad. They do about 17 trains a day through here. And I'm not sure exactly what PIH, TIH, which would be toxic by inhalation or poisonous by inhalation. They have very strict protocols. I believe Prince William County has an emergency management group that is working with Norfolk Southern, so that's where I would start. And I think they're required by federal
That's the name,
regulation.
They do, that's right.
By federal regulation, they're required to have an emergency management plan or emergency evacuation plans by federal regulation. So, and I'm not sure where the state fits in, the FEMA group in the state, so that's where I think I would start.
And Joe, you mentioned a good point. I actually, because I used to have to work with him, I do know the emergency, I don't know if he's the chief director or whatever, the emergency planning, first name is Brian, here in Prince William County. I can get you his information. He may have something on that, so I'll get you his name though and all if you'd like. Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Chris?
I
Figure
think,
you
that was
got
it. I think it was just a directive that I think the chief needs.
Yeah.
Because it's a great idea, you know, and we just never know when something is going to happen. And then I think there was an incident. There was an incident once, probably 2 years ago. When was the last death on the tracks?
I don't remember.
It was shut down for a while, and no one, really, there wasn't anything that was sent out to town residents just to avoid the area.
Well, part of the problem is if you do have something like a fatality along the right of way, those long trains could end up blocking the crossings too, so that becomes very problematic. So you have to have a plan for that as well.
Right.
How are you going to reroute people? So, yeah.
Yeah, we haven't had any recent fatalities, but we're pretty on top of putting out immediate responses on our Facebook page and using the group texting a little
that's
better over the years than we were when I first got here. So we'll just figure out the plans and increase that as well.
Okay.
And the agencies that you need to get involved with to come and help, you know.
Yeah, I definitely would start with Prince William County. I'm pretty sure that they're.
Yeah, I'm gonna start with them, and especially the fire department. I'm sure the fire department has protocols and everything, and they'd be the ones that would take lead on all of this. We would just be following their orders on who needs to evacuate what neighborhoods and things like that. So they'll be, them and Prince William will be the ones that I would.
I'll send you the email to Chief of Brian, who's the chief of the OEM,
Okay.
Office of Emergency Management.
All right, thank you, sir.
I just have a couple questions for Tracy. So when do you think?
I'm like, okay.
Not to put you on the spot. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. Just trying to get an understanding of when you think you might be bringing it back, what the timeline might be on the plan itself? A couple of months?
Well, I was just going to say, we'll work along with Chief and see if we can't do so. I'd like to see something sooner rather than later. That's
Yeah.
certainly a very big concern.
Okay.
So, and then we spoke also in regards to really getting the community, again, to come to staff with any questions and be open and comfortable and approaching any of us in regards to questions, and if we can't answer them, referencing them to staff. That's a very organic process now that we're more viable in the community, yeah.
And then just one other question about, I love the idea of like a welcome. I think that's just wonderful. I think probably the HOAs might be the best place for most of the town. Not everybody's in an HOA, but they would know who's coming and going, or would that be more of a real estate?
They would know way after the fact. They
Well,
would know.
so when,
Well, when they hand out packages of the agreements as things are being settled.
Yeah, you've got to purchase the disclosure package from the HOA before you
they
can
have a
sell the
resale
house.
packet. Yeah.
But good.
Yeah. So normally when you move into a neighborhood, you have to, there's an HOA disclosure in regards to resale packets. So they would, depending on who's managing their HOA, know if somebody's moving into the neighborhood. So I think that primarily at the beginning, we'll rely mostly on neighbors letting us know that somebody new is coming into our town, and then we can reach out and welcome them. Emily did have an idea in regards to making a trifold brochure, so instead of doing calendars, including that. So this is where you gain access, this is what you can do, these are some of the things. I think that was a great idea, and I'd really like to see that implemented sooner rather than later. just an informational, like Town of
I'm
Haymarket,
still
this is,
thinking,
yeah.
I'm way behind. I'm thinking about how the HOA knows. Because they would just know for the disclosure, but they wouldn't know when the closing has taken place. They wouldn't know, when their moving date is and stuff.
Correct.
And if I can, that's one of those opportunities where I think if we were to have like a citizens group that's willing to participate in it, if
Yeah.
we kind of reach out and get a decent amount of people that are willing to participate, this way if one of them sees a moving truck or something like that, that's kind of, it's going to have to be spread word of mouth. And then that may be something where we prepackage 50, 60 of these welcome packets that has all the information they need, kind of like seal it in a packet, and then either we can go over and deliver it to them, or maybe put it on like a door hang or something like that, so maybe if we did miss them. So there's some opportunities that we may not get, the first day or week they move in, but, I'm sure residents know when, they get new neighbors. We just got to make sure they let us know they got new neighbors so we can, give
Well,
them
no,
that
they have
information.
somebody to talk to, right? Somebody to ask questions.
No, I kind of wanted to get it delivered before the chief puts a ticket on the car for not having a town
Before they
sticker.
don't have a town sticker.
Stay away from town stickers.
We don't do that anymore?
Sure, we do.
So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Any more questions for Tracy Lynn? Okay. We'll move on to the invocation discussions.
Just for clarification, so I had Kim send out what was adopted in August of 2014, and then Martin came back and said that the document he had is what should be at all of you guys' seats today, and his date on that was December of 2014. However, we could not find a meeting or anything where it was discussed, so I'm not sure which one is the most up-to-date, but that's the one Martin had. So I don't know if they had discussed the one that's in the work session packet, and then it was amended to have the hard copy that you guys have at your seat. But I just want to let you know, so we have two kind of guidelines in regards to the invocation information. So the only one that we know, though, is the one that was in the agenda packet, is the one that was adopted and discussed at a town council meeting in August of 2014.
To the best of my knowledge, Joe, maybe you can help me here, but to the best of my knowledge, this was never discussed. I think the mayor just added it to the agenda, right?
We discussed it, but we never voted
Right.
on whether to include it as part of the agenda, which would have to be done as item 5 in our council rules of procedure. We basically voted on this as a guideline, and we approved this. It was unanimous. But other than that, no, there was no real vote on whether to include it in the agenda or not. It was organic.
Yeah, well, if you look at both of them, they're very similar. The bullets are the same, so there's not much. But before we dive into this, I want to get a feel for what direction we're going to be going. So I'd like to do a roundtable with people giving their opinion on whether they want the invocation. And then afterwards, we'll do a quick survey and find out what the voting is. If it looks like it wouldn't pass anyways, then there's no really need to discuss outlining, I guess, the guidelines and everything else. So who would like to start this round table? Should we go around the room from Marchant, I guess?
Well, wait a minute. I would suggest Chris start because you brought it to the
Let's see.
discussion, so
Yeah.
I would.
So everyone knows where I stand as a born-again Christian. So, but I'm pretty open. My personal view on having the invocation is not necessarily for Christians to dominate the prayer group or the blessing that happens over the council meetings. I think it is important to get to know and see the other faces of faith within our organization. Our first 2 years, once we started this in 2014, I had the privy of meeting those from the Anglican Church. There was a Muslim group. I just sent you an email on them. And from the Muslim group, we got to understand how they were helping people in the community. There was also a gentleman that came from it's not the Baha'i faith, it's head-wrapped Indian, Sikh, thank you,
Buddhism.
from the Sikh. And really nice people. So for me personally, when I look at an invocation, it is not necessarily that from a Christian's point of view, where Christians dominated, because we live in a time where we should acknowledge all faith and allow them to participate. But for us personally, as the sitting members of council, it gives us the opportunity to get to know what's out there. Because then we can be closed-minded to just hearing Park Valley and Living Hope and the church behind El Vaquero and the Baptist Church. Now, personally, I would love to see that, but sitting on the dais, I don't think that's the right thing to do. I think if we're going to do it, we need to make sure that it's fair. We need to make sure that we offer the opportunity for other faiths to come and to share what they're doing, especially in the community, and more importantly, have a time limit as far as what they want to share, which should be included in their prayer or blessing. But I think it's important for us to get to know them and get to hear what's happening. Because I was taken aback when I found out how much they were doing in the Muslim community. Thank you.
I feel very strongly that diversity and showing that and supporting that is important. And everybody, it's a very personal time. I feel very important that it's shown in our community.
I'll be glad to go next, Mr. Mayor. I too support it. Being a Christian myself, I believe it's the right thing to do. I too have been able to meet a couple of different people. One gentleman from the Muslim faith that I found very interesting. We've actually got volunteers for one of the churches, and I don't remember which one, but I thought that was great. And the fact that they stand here and they spend just a couple of minutes to tell us what's going on and then provide the invocation, I wholeheartedly support.
I guess Bob?
I guess I'll be the first heretic. In theory, I don't have a problem with it, but I would note that anecdotally, I've seen many jurisdictions going away from the rotational representative of some faith. I think if you go and review, for instance, Prince William County of late, the invocation is given by a board member who's willing to do it. And it's simply a prayer before the meeting to bless this house, bless this body, bless the residents of Prince William County, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they've sort of gone away from it. And I can kind of understand why. It's one thing to purport that you even mean, not purport, let's not ascribe it to the genuine intent to promote diversity, recognize all religions, all faiths. It's another thing to administer it and get it done. How do you establish a policy that will be viewed as equitable to all of the diverse faiths at this point in time, particularly given that any effort you make is going to be viewed through a variety of different lenses and optics of people either in support thereof or, looking to skewer you for not doing it enough or doing it too much. It's kind of a question is, at the end of the day, is the juice worth the squeezing? Or does it become an admin issue where if you don't recognize one faith or you recognize one church far too often or you have the appearance of doing it, are you playing favoritism? And I'd really rather not go down that road. I think I'm not averse to having a member of the council deliver a prayer before the meeting, but I don't know that I want to go to the level of, organizing a calendar of faith leaders to come in here before a meeting and give what has in practice been a presentation and not a prayer in past years. We've got enough on our plates and dragging meetings out till 11:30 at night that I don't particularly want to put myself or the people that are waiting here for something like a public hearing through a 15 or 20 minute or 30-minute sermon, which we've had delivered in the past. So time limits are crucial, and there's no mention of a time limit in any of this. Personally, I just rather keep it short and sweet. If somebody wants to deliver a prayer, fine. You can take it from there, whatever your religious beliefs or affinities are.
Marchant, your opinion?
Okay, so first a clarification. So what was handed out today, this evening, what relationship did this was adopted, this was presented, versus the one in the packet?
So this is the one that Martin stated that he had as his guidelines for the invocation.
Okay, and the one
What Kim was able to find and emailed you guys shortly after the last meeting is what she was able to find in the agenda meeting minutes back from 2014. So the one you guys have that Martin had, we have actually been unable to find because I spent a good couple hours with her trying to find this specific one to see what meeting it was at or where it was brought up, and we could not find it. However, Martin did have it as his guidelines for the invocation.
So,
The only difference is bullet point 2, first phrase.
so the one in the packet where we determined there was not officially voted on, it was just the mayor's prerogative at the time to add invocation as part of the agenda. Is that a fair assessment? So we do not have an adopted policy on that, correct? Okay. First of all, being of a military background, invocations, and I just looked up the definition of invocation, is a moment of reflection and kind of give us focus, settle the group, get us focused on the task at hand, and doesn't necessarily need to be part of faith, although we invoke faith as a way to bring people together. What's that? Tradition. Yeah, a tradition. So my experience has been usually council members will provide the invocation. And so if that's the case, a simple guideline to say, if you choose to make an invocation at the council meeting, you should generally follow these parameters. The other example of using them to come in and it's kind of a way to, we used to do advertise new businesses. Businesses would come in and introduce themselves. I look at it that way. If we want to have a separate agenda item specifically to highlight the public nonprofits in the community and give them a short time with which to present their organization, that's great. Give them a time limit. You have 5 minutes to present your item. So I look at it as two separate things. I'm fine with an invocation. I'm fine with this general outline for what it means if someone is to do that. Whether or not we invite members of the community, if we want to rotate throughout the council members and say this month I'll either do it myself or I'd like to bring someone in to do a short invocation, that's fine. But really leave the more of the this is what we do, this is our mission statement to be a separate item on an agenda. So, those are my thoughts. I apologize, keep talking about touching my mask, it was falling down my face there. So, should have taken it off, my apologies.
Joe?
Okay, so I was looking at the Haymarket Town's core values, and I see up there inclusive, meaning being inclusivity. I concur with what I've heard from Marchant so far, relative to, so far, Marchant. I think introducing these different communities can be done via the agenda and an invitation. I think we can learn a lot about them. Chris is right. We did invite, as a matter of fact, I take a lot of honor in the fact that Adams with Rizwan Jaka, when I met them at the Commonwealth Breakfast in Washington, D.C., with Senators Warner and Kane, I had a chance to chat with him and was able to invite him and the color guard to come. I believe his daughter, if if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So they brought their color guard and they did an invocation, which was very nice, and it was really good to introduce them to the town. So that was good. I think we can accomplish both. I think we can accomplish introducing the services and what people provide through the agenda. I don't necessarily think it has to be in an invocation, although that's what we've done in the past. I do think that we need to change the council rules of procedure, item 5, if we're going to do this. And if we're going to do an invocation, I think we need to do that and vote on it. My faith is my business. That's the way I was raised, and that's a personal thing. As far as doing an invocation, I'm more of a secularist. I believe in the separation. 2 o'clock in the morning, being awake sometimes with an illness, there are prayers out there, and I say my prayers when I need to. But I don't think it's really required or necessary for the conduct of business in town. It's a nice thing. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have a nod to that, and I think that can be handled through the agenda item itself. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Mr. Mayor, can I just one quick comment? Because I don't disagree with Bob Weir's comments, but I can say in 3.5 years that I've sat up here, I've never seen it go longer than, except for one time that went a little bit long. I've not seen it one time go more than just a couple of minutes and present any problems whatsoever. But having a time limit, or whether it's Chris or whoever, meet with him saying you have just a couple minutes, tell us a little bit, and then say the prayer, and that's it. I agree that should be the way it should be done. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And of course, I think I've already stated my opinion in the past. I do like a separation of church and state, so to speak.
Church and state.
Well,
Or organ, is that what it is? A church? Or
Yeah, separated
faith?
the church and state.
faith and, separated from town business, just governance.
And we had this discussion in 2014 too, and it was split. There was a split opinion on it in the council. I remember that.
So, yeah, if we wanted to present somebody to welcome them to the town, let them, have some town awareness, that could be an agenda item. But invocation in the sense of a prayer, I don't think it's necessary. But like I said, I'm willing to entertain it since I'm not a dictator here. This is a dais full of council members. So this is what this time and discussion's for. So if we could get a survey, who would like to have an invocation added to the agenda? These hands. So we got 4. So it looks like we'll have to go into this a little bit deeper. I'm assuming that we might as well try to attack this as quick as possible, or at least prep on what we need. What you got here is the guidelines that we typically give out for anybody who's going to give the invocation, since it looks like this would be passing.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a clarifying question?
Mm-hmm.
To the point where some of us were looking at it as 2 separate issues, for those that were in support of it, is there agreement that if it's a presentation on their mission, that's different than necessarily doing a simple invocation? That was in my support for doing the invocation. It's just more of a short, reflective introduction prayer, and then any other explanation could be done through an agenda item. That was.
Next time, don't put your hand up.
I don't see it needs to be an agenda item. Again, I'm just going on, some of y'all have been here a lot longer than I have. 3.5 years, there's been no issue whatsoever, none.
Just thinking of one way to, I was trying to get the sense of those that supported it. Were they looking at 2 separate things, or letting it be part and parcel?
The mayor ask the question again, and this time keep your hand down. Simple.
All right.
That's not fair.
Yeah, for real, yes. That's
not
what he's
fair.
asking. Mr. Mayor, the mayor is asking if you would want to include an invocation, and you put your hand up as yes.
I did say
And
yes.
now you're
When-
saying you
when
answered
say-
a different question, so next time just keep your hand down.
No, I disagree. So, thanks.
So we got a point of information here. What would you like the question.
Point of clarification, and so those that were supporting the invocation, was there an interest in splitting the two elements we've discussed? Or for those that were, or the sense of those that supported it, wanted to keep it as a presentation by whoever, whatever member of the faith-based group we bring in? Do we want that to be the traditional, what we've done in the past, or what's been done in the past, this presentation of what they do?
I think what we're discussing is if there is an invocation, I think if you want to split it in two questions, invocation and give information on your organization, if you want to split it in two questions, and personally, I'm going to support both of them.
Okay.
But and then when the question comes back around, you can support one presentation and keep your hand down for the invocation, and we go from there. Then the mayor will have a good feel, because that's what he wants. The mayor just wants a good feel from us if we should even pursue, and if that's the case,
Right.
then we won't even pursue this because your hand would be down.
Yeah, if we should be wasting our time
Yeah.
with guidelines and.
It's simple.
So the
I
question
will
is,
take your feedback under advisement.
are we going to narrow the question down to who's in favor of having an invocation by its
That's what I was asking.
or by its standard definition, whether it be delivered by a member of the council or somebody that's invited in, to where it's strictly essentially an opening prayer,
Exactly.
clearly removed from anything else. If that's the question, then I have a different answer.
Okay, just want to start off the conversation. Thanks for the feedback.
So I'm looking at this as being, invocation is just the prayer piece of it, right?
Correct.
No introduction.
Well, wait, I'm sorry, I do have a question. You get, as a hypothetical here, Pastor Chris Morris is going to come up and do the introduction. Would he not come up and say, hi, I'm Chris Morris of such and such church, or whatever, and then go into his invocation?
He could say that, yes, but not go into the 2-minute presentation of what they're
Okay.
doing.
Okay.
How many people they're helping, where their new location is going to be. So
I'm
I think
supportive of that.
what the mayor is asking now is who would be in support of an introduction invocation. That's it. No,
Okay,
no 2-3
Got it.
minutes about
Yeah,
that.
I would be in
no
favor of that.
sales- No sales pitch, so to speak, right?
Got it, okay.
That was why I asked my question. And if that's what we're voting on, then I'm back on the same page. So, thanks.
I'm with that as well, I'll stay with my
So
vote.
good for prayer, we'll ask the question for the prayer piece of it.
Okay.
Introducing the people in the prayer. We still got hands up? So we're still good with 4, 5? Okay, so now we need to hit the guidelines and everything for this, and pretty much a time frame. I think, like you said, the Article 5, or whatever you would consider it, Paragraph 5, Item 5 of the policies for the meeting.
Can you expound on that for me, please?
Section 5, Section 5, Order of Business for Council Meetings, Order of Business 5-1, and it's the outline of the agenda. So for right now, we have call to order, Pledge of Allegiance, public hearings, etc. Nothing, so I think what we should do, if we're going to adopt a policy, or we're going to include that we should amend the order of business for council meetings.
And that would be good too, because then Ms. Kim, when she's searching, she'll know exactly where it was approved, when it was added to the agenda, and no longer will Chris Coon takes 2 hours to look for invocation. Freeing him up 2 hours for something else. Just kidding.
Ask another clarification question, Mr. Morris.
Actually, the mayor is the chair, not me.
Chair.
You don't have to ask him.
You don't have to
I
ask
agree
me.
with you.
Yeah,
Yes.
He and I have never really
Unless you-
publicly disagreed on this.
unless you want some conviction.
One after this one, or the one that was in the packet?
I think we're going to have to enact the one that's in the packet, mainly because if you look at this one, it still has an old email address for contact on it. So if you're going to focus on it, I think we need to focus on the one that's in the packet.
So that means I think we should adopt two things, unless we can do it just with one vote. The change to the procedure, the agenda, and the guidelines. No? Thoughts?
We would just have the procedure amended so that we can vote on it at the next meeting. I would suggest throwing it in right after the Pledge of Allegiance, if there's no objection.
Can I just interrupt for one thing, Bob? If Chris isn't going to be here, then my recommendation would be to wait till the next meeting.
Can I write it in? Can I write in my vote?
No,
Can I
the only
zoom
way
in?
to...
Can I zoom in my vote?
That you
Can
can
I
do.
zoom in?
You can zoom.
Yeah, as long as we have a quorum, you'd be able to zoom in, yes.
Okay.
Wasn't there a member
So
that
that means
zoomed
you're
in
going to stay
before?
for the entire
Yep.
meeting, though, right?
Bob, wasn't he on vacation and zoom
Yeah.
in?
Yeah.
Same thing, as long as there's a quorum, you can zoom in.
Oh, that's-
Be the one that creates the quorum and zoom
No.
in.
Correct.
But you
there
also...
will be a quorum, so don't worry about it. You'll be good.
But you have to be here for the whole meeting, though, so that means you...
I would have to be here for it?
Yeah, if you're going to call in, you got to stay for the whole meeting.
And no drinking.
Right, how do you mark in minutes when they've left if you can't?
That was that was a knife when you twisted.
Does it off camera. Like I did.
Okay,
Yeah, like Bob did. Yes.
No, we
Okay,
couldn't
let's-
see him for half the meeting.
No, we had the lights down.
let's ring this in so we can continue going, because also with the guidelines, I think we need to include some type of a reference of a time limit. I think what we have behind for like citizens' time is probably a good reference on what we should be giving them as a maximum time. Now, you got two categories in citizens' time, though. You got a business representation and a citizen. So I'm assuming we'd want to go with the citizens so that we keep it to 3 minutes, right?
I would say no more than that. I'd like to see him do something like the doxology. That would be
Citizens are
quick.
5?
Yeah, the citizens are 5.
Citizens are 5.
Mayor, I would disagree with 5 minutes if they're not going to share anything on their organization.
If it's simply a prayer, I'd go with 3.
That's even a long prayer. But
I was going to say 2.
yeah,
We're putting
Just
3,
trying to be nice.
yeah.
where are we again? We're saying with the, you were saying putting it under citizens' time, having, if they want to present about their organization, they'll do it under citizens' time. Is that what we're saying? Okay.
Give him the organizational,
But not a
10
timing on
minutes.
invocation. I don't think we need to do
yeah, the invocation needs to be short.
Yeah.
But, you know,
a, on that, I can just.
there are some pastors that can't do a prayer in less than, 2.5 minutes, so let's give them 3.
The 3 maximum.
Like I
So
said,
that would be just like an added bullet,
right.
a directive to staff. You think you can come up with something that kind of meets that? You can look at what our citizens' time bullets and recommendations are and just put a 3-minute time limit on it.
I'll work something up, and then I'll also discuss it with Martin on Wednesday's call, just to verify that we don't have any issues. And if
Okay.
we do, I'll be sure to let you guys know as soon as that call's done.
Okay, and then we can, vote on it next week.
Okay.
And that gives any citizens time to react to it if they want to.
I got a question, Mr. Mayor.
Uh-huh.
So we have Muslims that pray and finish their prayer to the Creator. We have Hindus who pray and pray the source of all being. We have other non-Christian denominations that pray to our Maker, and Christians who pray to in Jesus' name, and it's not on the list.
I think this is just exemplary, isn't it?
Okay.
I would say it's exemplary.
Because if I'm praying in Jesus' name.
But it says some opening aspirations are aspirations.
Yeah, so it's just simply
Are just
exemplary.
examples. Okay, thank you. Thank you for clarification.
That's right, and like I said, with diversity, we accept Jesus as opposed to, the Jewish people don't, and so, everybody can have their own time. We'll look for diversification. But we'll start off.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, I think we took care of that. Anybody have any further questions before we move on? Okay, let's move on. I guess we got the police vacancy that we got to discuss so that we can continue to either move forward or stall. I guess I'll let Chief rebrief us on it before we go through some discussions with, I guess, needing to replace Corey O'Neill. What
Has been done since the last directive?
yeah, what has been done since?
So an ad was put in the on the VML website, on the Virginia Association of Chiefs of Police website, on our Facebook page. We have 3 in-hand applications and a possibility of 2 more coming in. We would have already started backgrounds and scheduled interviews, but we were asked to wait until this. So if given the go-ahead, we will begin backgrounds and interviews immediately. The schedule has already been made for November with the existing staff that we have, and that's where we're at right now, just waiting. I was asked, I believe by you, for a list and an amount of what it would take to outfit an officer. It's right at $2,300. Some of the items that are on the list, and I have the list here if you'd like to see it, we already have, so it's not going to cost us that, but that's what it costs from beginning to end if we were to start fresh. And that's where we're at for now.
Okay, yeah, I was looking at your schedule, and I see, I don't know if we're calling these bottom police officers part-time or reserves, but I only see them being scheduled 4 times within the month.
Which month are you looking at, sir?
October, the schedule you gave for October.
Let me pull that up real quick. And what's your concern on that?
Well, I was wondering if we could utilize them more and maybe see if we can be a little bit more smart or beat our heads a little bit more to try and come up with a schedule to utilize the people that we already have.
That's what you see there, the October schedule. And I'll tell you what, I have a November schedule for you so you can see that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
So that just shows you the November schedule is again filled for now with no vacations or sick days or anything like that, but it's filled with your part-time being used as well.
And this does not include the
Laney?
vacancy, obviously.
No.
Correct.
Does this include?
That's a schedule, the November schedule I just gave you is filled with just the 5 officers that we have and the 2 part-timers, keeping the 24-hour coverage.
But this is 24-hour coverage plus Laney detail.
The Laney, yes, the Laney detail's covered as well, but the Laney detail has nothing to do with the schedule. There's a saying in police work that the schedule is king, so Laney detail is second to anything that happens with the schedule. If there is an officer, if there's a hole that is needed to be plugged, and that only officer that can plug it is an officer working Laney will be second to the town, and we just won't charge them for those hours that we're not there. Also, if something happens in the town and the Laney officer is needed to back up the primary officer, he comes off of that and backs up. Schedule is king. Laney has nothing to do with what we have.
Chief, question. Do you think if Laney detail was to go away, you would be in a better position to offer better coverage?
No, again, the Laney schedule has nothing to do with the schedule. with the street schedule, nothing.
However, if someone
So
gets,
in other words, the Laney schedule is only staffed by officers who are off duty and are not needed at the time.
however, if someone is sick or is on vacation, that person, you could have pulled from that person who would otherwise be on the Laney detail.
Again, I will pull the Laney detail officer no matter what. If I need them, they will be pulled. So, does it make a difference? No. Whether it's Laney is there or Laney's not, if I need you, I'm pulling you.
But do you think then it is wise to try to give away the Laney detail to Prince William County?
No. No, why would we? If we needed it, we would, but we haven't had to do that, and I don't foresee having to do that.
Laney detail, Chief, is really is just some perks for overtime, to give you all an opportunity to work overtime.
Not overtime, but
Well,
additional off-duty
Additional,
time.
yeah, yes, sir, that's correct, not overtime. But again, as you stated, takes nothing away from your normal schedule.
Nothing.
Okay.
I've got the Laney detail schedule too, if anyone would like to see that.
Just a couple technical questions.
Yes, sir.
So when does the pay period begin and end?
So if you look at the schedule, you see where, at the very top, you see the day, the number of the days.
Uh-huh.
Like, so you see where it says 6, and then below 6 is Friday, and then below that is a P. That's your paydays. So the schedule would start the Saturday before the payday and go to the Friday prior to the payday.
Got it. Or, that means
So that
Thursday.
gives Roberto a week, that gives us a week to get our pay stubs together and to Roberto for payday on the 3rd week, if you understand what I'm saying.
So it would run, for example, in this table, the 7th through the 20th? That would be one
run-
pay period?
No, so when you're being paid on on Friday the 6th,
Yep.
you're already a week into the pay period.
Okay,
So it would be Saturday the 31st
got it.
through Friday the 13th, and then on Monday, we would review the timesheets and then give them to Roberto on Monday for him to be able to review and cut a check on Friday.
All right, so Monday, review timesheets. Okay. No, that's easy
Mayor,
to
can
understand.
I'm sorry, go ahead, I'm
Um,
sorry, Joe.
I notice you have Gregory here at the bottom,
Yes.
Tuesday for training. Tuesday the 10th?
Yes, sir.
That's it? I don't see anything else here?
Gregory is the officer who just went and took the other job with another police department, but he is such an asset to our department that he offers training that he's qualified into the department.
He's giving the training?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's good to know. All right,
That's
I
the
thought he
expert-
left.
That's the
So-
expertise of our police department,
So-
that
so-
we have it in-house.
Officer Gregory is still a part-time officer with us. He's full-time with Clark County, but we had, he had been working with us, he had all the equipment, all the gear, we kept him on part-time. He works part-time when needed. On the 10th is range day, where we all have to go qualify. He is a certified law enforcement firearms instructor, as well as Jake Davis. So you got to figure if Jake were to qualify everybody, Jake has to be qualified by somebody. So we just split half the group is qualified under Gregory, and then Gregory gets in the next group, and that's qualified by Jake.
Okay, yeah, train the trainer.
Right, so what you see is I'm only using the part-time guys as needed. Now, I usually make a schedule like this, and then it changes, it'll change if somebody gives me a vacation request, or a sick request, or something pops up.
I'm sorry, you may have said this. How often do we use Mr. Officer Gregory?
Just when needed. So the 3 officers, Anderson, Nugent, and Gregory, are only used as needed. They're not scheduled with any type of regularity.
Okay. Do they have more availability, do we know?
They do.
They do. Okay. Thanks, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, because it looks like Anderson's getting 24 hours of pay period, but Nugent, I see him just 12 hours, one pay period.
24, what are you looking at, sir? You mean of October? He's in
No,
November now.
November, I'm in November.
November.
This one.
Where do you see that in
Well,
November?
he's looking at the letters. and
November
that
14th and
correlates to
15th. And November 28th and 29th.
the- Right.
Mr. Mayor, could I ask a question here? I'm a little bit confused. We're talking about the schedule. Are we trying to determine whether the schedule, whether he can do without this officer, his vacancy?
Well, that's what I'm looking at, yeah. You know, I saw 3 people here. I didn't know if we were using all 3 of the part-time
Yes,
help
okay.
to fill holes. Right now, it looks like, I'm trying to see if there are any holes in the days with this round here.
There's no holes.
But again, I guess what I'm getting at is, are we looking at delaying the hiring?
Well,
Last time we told him to move forward, we'd discuss it more, which we're doing.
right.
But are we looking at delaying this longer?
Well, I'm just looking at the schedule and seeing where we might have extra time for help. Like I said, we got Nugent here who's only working 12 hours on the first day, but then he's not used anymore. It looks like we got a full rotation here without any other help. So, you know, I was wondering if could we keep this type of schedule? Is it going to be stressing our police force out? Is this something that maybe we could try out for 3 months to see how it goes, to determine whether we do need a part-time help or another full-time person? Bob, you have some comments?
Comments, questions? In looking at the 2 between October and November, the November schedule takes care of many of the questions I had about the October schedule. And I like the November a whole lot better than I like the October one. It cures some issues, some questions I had in October, so I'm much more happy with the way the November one is laid out, at least with respect to the full-time officers. I am curious, though, if you look at the October numbers, we had 4 total shifts for the part-timers and 5 in November. And quite frankly, I thought we would be making much more use of the part-timers rather than just that few numbers of shifts.
Do you want me to? Because the schedule you see in November is myself and Sergeant and Lieutenant Shaver plugged into the schedule, working the street by ourselves. If you would like that not to happen, I'd be more than happy to plug officers in those positions. The only reason you're seeing only 4 part-time openings is because the lieutenant and myself are plugged into the schedule, working the shifts on our own. That is doable, but in the long term, that you will miss some things. Like Wednesday, this past Wednesday, I worked the street by myself. I was supposed to be attending a Northern Virginia Chiefs meeting in Loudon at the academy with all the other Northern Virginia chiefs discussing the election plan, whether there be unrest or not, and then we had a whole big thing planned. I had to miss that because, like I said, the schedule's king. The street
So that was
comes
the
first.
That was
So
the 14th or the 21st?
It was last Wednesday.
Last Wednesday, the 21st. Yeah, I mean, that's where I'd kind of like to see the part-timer plugged in. If you know that that's going to be an issue ahead of time, it would seem to me that that's when you would use your part-time help to plug the holes or plug vacation holes or whatever else comes up.
Yeah.
But it strikes me that, and I guess we only have 2 real part-time officers if Gregory is otherwise, well, let's say 2.5. I mean, it strikes me that we should be making more use of them rather than less. And maybe I'm missing something, so I'm not understanding it. And I also want a clarification on Laney. How many hours a week do we spend at Laney? Just roughly.
8 hours,
8 times 6, 7?
8 times 6, 48 plus 12. A week.
60 a week?
Yes, sir.
And who's filling those slots?
Everybody.
Everybody?
That's just overnight, right?
It's
And
on
weekends?
the Monday through Saturday is 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. and on Sundays is 7 p.m. to 7 a.m.
Yeah, I mean, and one of the reasons I actually prefer the November to the October one is if you look at the October one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 days out of the 31, we had 3 officers scheduled at the same time. And we don't have that circumstance quite as much in the November schedule. We've got
You don't have it at all.
we don't have any.
That's because Lieutenant Shaver's now working a shift.
I much prefer the November one personally, and I think that takes care of the issue for the short term.
Chief, I want to get this straight. So, minus the officer now, the vacancy you have now, you and the lieutenant are basically beat cops. You're out on the street.
On certain days, yes, sir.
That's not what we're paying him to do. We're paying him to run the police department, not go out and be one of the officers, one of the beat officers. My opinion. I personally don't want to see the chief out here lighting people up when we have other issues that he should be taken care of, whether it's the reports, the same thing for the lieutenant. I'm just confused by why we're even debating on filling that position. And if it's a money thing, gosh, guys, a couple of y'all are looking at $7 million to go in debt with. And we're talking, how much does that officer cost a year?
It depends on what they would make, but
Corey, how
Roberto,
much did- how much did-
80,000,
80,000.
somewhere around there with with benefits included.
And right now, that's included in our budget. It's budgeted to pay that.
Budgeted for more than that with Officer O'Neill was making more.
I just don't see personally why it's even a discussion, why we don't move forward with the hire when we're looking at spending $7.5 million on something else. I mean, that's, and I'm gonna go one more. I said I wasn't gonna do this, but I'm going to. And this is out of respect for all of you. I actually wrote a long letter here because I was afraid this is where this is going when I saw it on the schedule. Think about the rumors and everything, and all of us up here had heard about the new council's going to defund the police, or you're going to mess with their budget. That's exactly what's happening. Exactly what's happening. Now, we've talked about it, and we're trying to rationalize everything, but I just don't see how. And I am going to pull this out. I am going to take this time to do this, because I think this is important. Prior to the, and I'm going to read this, so you have to bear with me. Prior to the election, there were rumors that if elected to the council or the mayor's seat, that you had already discussed your plans to ensure a reduction in force or RIF for the town of Haymarket Police Department was by taking away funds in at least 1 or 2 positions. I asked last week, was there ever discussion of a RIF? 2 of you said, no, never a discussion of it. And maybe it wasn't. First of all, I'll tell you up front, I was not one of them that made those comments. I certainly had my concerns. Let's look at what has happened so far with this new council. You took away the take-home cars. That's money out of their pockets. That is money out of their pockets. The PD funds have been cut by what percent, Chief?
Over 5.
5%.
3.9.
3.9, okay, thank you, and now you're looking at delaying the hire of an officer to replace Officer O'Neill that took employee elsewhere, and I have my suspicions of why he left, and it had nothing to do with the chief of police or his. But what I'm concerned about happening, we delay this for 3 months. We're going to get 3 months down the line. We're going to say, well, you know what, it worked these 3 months, let's go 3 more. And then we're going to be at the end of the fiscal year. And then at the end of the fiscal year, we're going to say, well, you know what, we used all these part-times. We had the chief and the lieutenant working as beat cops, and that's not a knock on law enforcement. They're working as beat cops, so we don't need it. So what does that do? That goes back to exactly the comments and the rumors that were made before the election and right after the election. You're defunding the police department to some extent. Now, I'm going to ask you to consider this. November 3rd, there is a great possibility of major civil unrest throughout the United States. This town is not exempt from being targeted. We've been very fortunate so far, and a lot of that speaks to the professionalism of our police department here, our chief, and how they've supported, whether it be Black Lives Matter or others. But we're not immune from that. I'll just close by saying that if you delay the hiring of the vacant police officer position or defund that position, you're taking the risk of putting our residents at further risk. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to just point out, just re-looking at the November schedule, there's only 3 days that the chief would be working by himself on a day shift. Correct me, Chief? True?
Currently, yes.
Yes. So on the November schedule that's here.
I see that, but that's with nobody taking off or nobody on leave, nobody sick.
I just wanted to clarify the statement that he's working and the LT is working a shift on the street, but according to the schedule that you put out for November, there's only 3 days, the 4th, the 18th, and the 25th, that you're actually working a shift by yourself with 2 officers coming in later that day, the LT being one and another officer being the other person. Every other day that you're here on this schedule, 2nd, 3rd, 5th, 9th, 10th, 16th, 19th, 23rd, 24th, 30th, all those days you are working with primarily with the
day shift
lieutenant.
officer.
Yes.
It just happens to be the lieutenant because he's now plugged into a
Yes,
shift.
yes. Which I thought that was the way that it was supposed to be when you came forward with the promotion for the lieutenant, that he's still pulling a shift, even though he's been used doing some admin work and he's been great at it. As it stands right now with the November schedule, he is back on the schedule, pulling his regular shift.
No, he hasn't been on the schedule pulling a regular shift. That's what the 4th officer was for.
But no, he's back on it.
Not back. He never was on it. This is a new thing.
He was never on the schedule?
He was never working the street as the primary officer. He was the supervisor for the street officers.
I've always thought that when the promotion came about that he was just going to be holding a shift like everyone else. It's just a change in rank.
No, that hadn't been the case since before I got here.
So that means when he got promotion in earlier this year, I think it was, you've had, whenever you work with him, you've been in the office as a supervisor, the lieutenant is in the office as a supervisor, and you have a third person who's working the street?
We have a street officer, that's his primary duties. Then you have Lieutenant Shaver, who his primary duties is to supervise the street officers, with additional admin duties added to that. And then you have me, who also has my duties and supervises him. Now, what you need to remember is when I got here in 2017, I had a secretary as well.
Yeah, you saved the town over 120,000.
A lot of money on the secretary. Now, when we eliminated her position and put that money back into the general fund, her duties had to go somewhere. And she did a lot of duties. I mean, she didn't just sit around all day. So those duties were split between myself and the lieutenant, in addition to the duties that we were already doing. So I guess there may be a perception that Lieutenant Shaver just sits around and myself as two people on the shift, and we watch TV all day. That's not the case. There are admin duties that have to be done for a police department to run. The officer's primary duties is to patrol the town, do business checks, make arrests when needed. That is not what your admin staff does. There are lots of things that admin staff has to do that has nothing to do with patrol work. And patrol work wouldn't happen if the admin duties weren't there to back them up on radio contracts and getting radios fixed and cars going in and out and everyday things that have to do with supervision. So
I'm glad you're sharing this, and I'm glad it's in the open, because I'm tired of council members asking me why we have 3 officers on a duty, on a shift.
you have
So-
one officer on duty, you have 2 admin staff who are doing admin duties and backing the primary officer up. And when I got here, we did a study on when it was the busiest times, and it was always the beginning of the week during the day was always the busiest, Monday mornings particularly. But those were the times when we were able to do our duties and back the day shift officer up with multiple calls for service, because that's when the busy times are.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Someone wants to go
Go
first.
ahead. Yep. Go ahead, Bob.
Since we'll take it back to the election, I'll go ahead and take it back that far as well. And I was very clear with the chief prior to the election. I would not micromanage the administration of his department. I would micromanage the budget. I think I've been very clear about that from the outset. Now, some people will claim it's defunding the police department. Anybody who says that doesn't understand what the real issue is. Defunding the police department is an entirely different thing. That's where you're stripping monies out of the police department and transferring it to other social services, that sort of thing, reducing spending, and transferring it elsewhere within the government for programs that would replace the police largely with a different type of social role. I think what we've been looking at isn't defunding, it's right-sizing. Joe and I sat down, did a study of all the local departments, what the percentage of the budget each of their allocations made up was, what the per capita spending for both the general fund and for public safety was over a period of years, using the same year population data and in their current budgets. And over the last couple of years, and I've said this publicly and I've said it many times, our spending as a whole, everything, salaries, equipment, whatever, on a per capita basis for the town outstrips our nearest competitor by almost 25%, if not more. If you look at this year's initially adopted budget, the per capita share for every resident in town was $478.29. If you adjust that to include the Laney detail and the leased vehicles and everything else prior to the cuts, that goes up to $548.04 per person. Under the budget that we are probably or likely to adopt next week, it drops from $548.04 down to $522.68, but it's still more than the original budget that was adopted with the holes in it at the beginning of the year. By comparison, let's see, we'll be at $522.68. Occoquan, $243.09. Middletown, $315.18. Louisa, $311. Berryville, $184. Luray, $297. Woodstock, $387. Dumfries, $199. Strasburg, $279. Farmville, $335. Warrenton, $390. Percival, $289, and then the Leesburg, $281, and then the closest competitors, who are still more than $100 short of us per capita, Herndon at $418 and Vienna at $421. So the question is, what are we spending on, and why are we not doing it as well as every other town? That doesn't fall on him, that falls on us. That's the town's failure, not his. The town put him in that position. So the question is, how do we get more in line with everybody else? Otherwise, we're not going to have money to do everything else. Whether it's streetscape, supporting the businesses, being able to run these meetings, we've got to get our costs in line. If you look at the percentage of a police department budget versus the entirety of the general fund budget, we are way out of whack. There's only one jurisdiction that actually has greater numbers than we do, and it's an outlier because of the way that they are constituted, and that's the town of Middleburg. Middleburg's businesses outnumber their residents. They survive almost exclusively on business taxes. And with a population of only 834 people at the time, and a general fund budget that's almost twice ours, I mean, that pretty much shows. They can do whatever they want, and they spend $952.82 per capita, but they could afford to, given their business reliance. The reality is, all of these other jurisdictions, or most of these other jurisdictions, particularly the ones in Prince William County, have one thing in common with us. They do not rely absolutely on their own town police departments. That's why the residents in this town as well pay money to the county for support from the county police department. When they're not available, the county's there. We can't leave that out of the equation.
Correct.
Now, I'm suddenly hearing that we're spending a lot of time on highly trained officers to be admins because we got rid of our admin, our clerk, so to speak. I guess we need to, and it wouldn't surprise me, given the environment we're in and the way that times have changed over the year, maybe we should be looking at what nobody has addressed so far, and which didn't occur to me until the chief spoke a minute ago. Maybe it's time to take the admin burden off of the lieutenant and off of the chief and put a new clerk in, for lack of a better term. I don't know what you call them these days, I guess clerk or admin, PD, admin, whatever, that's not a sworn officer but at a reduced rate. I'm actually willing to consider that right now. I mean, if that will cure the issue and put sworn officers on the street and not sitting in the office doing admin work. I mean, I've had the same argument with the county budget staff over the years and with several of the immediate past chiefs about how many Leos they had sitting in the office doing paperwork all day and not going on and not having them on the street, and then at the same time crying about how they didn't have enough, they couldn't hire enough officers to fulfill the vacancies. I mean, I'm going to sit down and take a real long, hard look at this now because this discussion sort of changes the parameters that I had in mind. But I would suggest that's maybe a different option that we have. In any event, I don't think we've got enough information to make a decision tonight, or potentially next Monday night.
I'll give Chief first chance. Did you want to comment on this, or?
I would prefer, Mr. Mayor, if you hold off on the chief and allow him to speak after each council member has spoken.
Marchant, you want to go? You want me to go? Thank you, Bob. That was well articulated, and I concur with everything you said. I'm not going to go back and relitigate the past. What I'm going to say is that we have a responsibility. Yes, we have a responsibility to preserve and protect. We also have a responsibility to make sure our budgets are reasonable, efficient, and cost-effective. And I think from that perspective, that's where or at least that's where I'm going from. And all that other stuff in those diatribes before the election, during the election, it's just not it's not the truth. That's not why we're here. There are a lot of other reasons why we're here. And one of them is transparency, communication, and the budget. And that's what I ran on, those three. So I just want to make that clear. Chief, let me ask you a question about the issue of working the street. Because I don't think we need to go any further than what Bob presented, other than the fact that you mentioned it, but I really think it's important. And we understand that we're really paying a lot more than what you were even saying in that table. We are paying to the county, each and every one of us homeowners are paying money in our taxes, roughly, 21.5% of what we pay in our
Correct.
real estate taxes to the county goes to public safety. So when we're thinking about the monies that are involved, we need to plug that in to understand exactly what we're paying as citizens and residents of the town. I think that's a reasonable thing. We should be looking at that, and we should be looking at ways to optimize those costs, those expenses that we have to bear as citizens and as residents. Having said that, Chief, I just wanted to ask you, as far as doing the street work, when you were interviewed in, I'm not sure, was it 2016? Before you came on, I'm not even, 2016, 2017?
December of 2016.
Was there any discussion about, you doing any of that kind of work? Being out in the field?
A working police chief.
Working police chief. And what's your expectation of what a working police chief is?
Exactly what I'm doing, which is doing all the admin responsibilities of a police chief, but also working the street when needed. I back up officers all day, every day. The statement was made that admin staff just sit in the office. That's completely untrue. We do admin duties, and then we also are out on the street. We back officers, we do business checks, we do Facebook things around town, we do videos and interviews with people, we do searches for cameras, Ring cameras to build databases. So yes, the last 2 months I've written more tickets than any other officer in the department. So it's exactly what I'm doing. And again, schedule is king. So I'm no better than the officer. If I need to hit the street, I hit the street.
So you lead by example.
That's what I feel like I've done.
Yeah.
4 years that I've been here. Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'm just want to be sure that I understand that what you're doing is part of the job assignment, and you accept that.
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay. And the same thing goes with Shaver.
Yes, sir. No, so when I say that Lieutenant Shaver and myself are plugged into the schedule, that is not oh my God, look at what we're having to do. No, it's accepted, and that's what we do. That's part. The schedule's king, no matter what. You didn't hire me to hobnob with a bunch of chiefs in Northern Virginia. If the schedule is needed, then that's what I do. That's what we do. And that's not I'm being persecuted. No, not at all.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. I just want to be clear that this is not a defund the police thing. I think, from my perspective, this is an opportunity to look at the budget and see if there are better, smarter, and more cost-effective ways to do this, to provide that service. And I think we owe that to the citizens to do that. So I'm not going to apologize or take any offense from that. I respect your opinion, Steve, but I think we owe it to ourselves and to the residents and to the staff to make sure we go through this and better understand it. And so that's my comment for now. And my only other issue is, if we do hire, I think we should, when it comes to diversity, I think there's a real opportunity here for this town to go in the direction of diversity and inclusion.
If you have diversity, maybe you could ask the chief if he has received any applications to that regard while he is accepting applications.
I think he has.
Ask him.
Chief?
So let me preface that with, in today's climate, it's really hard to recruit. People are shying away from police work. So we haven't received a large amount of applications that we normally would have. So in this group we have now, there's no females have applied and no minorities have applied. But I have reached out and attempted to recruit in the minority field and just haven't had any success on that.
Okay, so seeing that it's a small pool, right?
Three guys right
It's
now.
really a small pool. You're not going to settle on somebody that isn't qualified.
I will never settle, and I'll run
Okay.
short as long as until I find the correct fit for the department.
Right, and do you think you can handle that in the short-term interim as we go through this? And if you can't find somebody that is up to the standard that you expect?
Yeah, and I think I have one of those now in the group that we have, but I wouldn't settle at all, no, sir.
Okay, thank you, Chief. I appreciate your candor.
Yes, sir.
I know Bob's anxious to add, but Marchand?
No, I'm good, I'm good.
Okay, a couple of things. I actually talked to Chief about this today, and how in this climate, how is asking questions about operations and budgets. It's frustrating that, and Steve, Councilman Shannon, this isn't picking on you, but just this climate that we're in right now, any questions automatically jump to defunding the police, or I've had people come already, you're doing what you said you wouldn't do. So that's a frustrating element of it. Nonetheless, I think we have to be realistic of the climate that we're in right now. Looking at a risk assessment, what it means to run lean in today's environment, not just the election, but with COVID, where if anyone gets tested positive, it can, change the dynamics of our police department very quickly and the ability to meet that service demand. So Chief, I had a question. The current staffing levels, how was that determined? It was based on a level of service policy, or?
We've had 6 officers since 2010.
Okay.
So it was determined before I got here.
Okay.
Long before.
Okay. But any recollection or anything you run into is that was determined to be to provide 24-hour service, provide?
Definitely for 24-hour coverage, but again, that was 2 chiefs, 3 chiefs before.
So my listening to the discussion, it makes sense. We want to be fiscally prudent. We want to make sure we're doing the best bang for our buck. But I also understand the risk. If we want to rediscuss the level of service policy and how we want to provide 24-hour coverage, or what the minimum expectation is to have, let's go ahead and have that discussion. But I think at this point, at this time, and I've come to a conclusion thinking about this afternoon, is we've budgeted it, we have it there, let's go ahead and fund it, let's go ahead and hire, and then continue to have these discussions about level of service policies, questions about other policy issues that we have, and revisit those at a later date. But I think right now, the prudent decision is to go ahead and hire, and then come back and revisit these questions as we move along throughout the year. That's my initial assessment.
Could I just ask I'm sorry, I was just going to ask the chief. Chief, before we've talked about how quickly you can respond. 2 or 3 minutes, you can be anywhere in the town of Haymarket.
Yes, sir.
Prince William County could take 10 or 15 minutes, depending, because they're light on this end because of you and your force. Now, I got that from the chief of police, and we all know that. So I just wanted to put that out too. That's, to me, being former federal law enforcement, I certainly understand what a difference 1 minute can make in saving somebody's life. So that's why I'm so supportive of our police department and what they provide our little town here, and not knocking the Prince William County Police. They're a great organization. They have some great folks. I know the new chief, or the acting chief, I know him well. But what our town gets from our chief of police in our town is service within a couple of minutes. Prince William County can't do that. So I'll shut up now. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I think we do need to understand how operations is, to find out what support levels we want. So I think one thing we probably need to get and read ourselves is the general orders that are in place. I guess with that, we would be able to determine if it does need to be updated, what mission we do want to put in place, right? But, to address some of what you were saying with the civil unrest, yeah, I can understand that. But even still, I doubt our police force is large enough to be able to handle the civil unrest that would be needed. And we would end up having to have
They're extra.
county
I agree.
county
I agree
support
with
as
you
well.
there.
And of course, that 3.9% reduction, that was across the board, even for our admin staff. And one of the easier ways to take care of that was through the take-home car policy, since we felt the benefits were fairly equal with what was comparable within the landscape of the counties in the D.C. metropolitan area. So, like Bob said, we did get, a light bulb did light up about maybe we want to keep our trained law enforcement officers available to do the patrolling while we have administrative done by someone who doesn't need the skill sets that's going to end up levying a higher salary to us. I mean, these are a lot of discussions that need to happen. So, what do we do? Marchand says, well, we budgeted for it, let's hire it. But, let's say we do that, and then all of a sudden we reassess how things need to go, and we want to shift this to an admin person. Now, all of a sudden, we got to lay somebody off. And who's going to do it? Typically, it's seniority wins, right?
Yes.
So, you're going to end up laying off a guy you just hired, if that's the route we end up going. So, we got a big decision here. That's why I did not want to make it overnight, so to speak, at the last meeting, and wanted to leave it
was a
to
good
now
discussion. We
to
needed
get
it.
some good discussion like this going. And so, now the question is, where do we go from here? Chris, you have a comment?
Yes, I do, sir. I would like to add to the discussion. I do not see this as a defunding of the police department. I see this as being fiscally responsible. It is giving us an opportunity to step back, look at the budget, deal with the chief one-to-one as far as the scheduling is concerned. I'm probably one of the biggest proponent of having police. I am in support of hiring a police officer to replace O'Neill. I am in total support of it. But in the interim, I think we do need to, however long it takes us to get to that point as a council to decide on that, I still think we do need to, the process that we're going through now, I think it is important. The research that can be done comparing the other jurisdiction and looking at our budget amount, especially our percentage amount of how much we spend on the PD compared to the admin side and compared to our overall budget, I think we do need to look at it. And I think during this season, we're taking a step back. We're not saying we're not hiring. I'm not saying we're not hiring the replacement of the police officer, because I know we're going to need him. However, there are good discussions as far as relieving the chief and the LT of admin work. The LT is a patrol, is on patrol. As far as I'm concerned with regard to his promotion was not to add and to take on the admin role. His position was to be a patrol officer, having a shift and working and still offering the chief the backup that he needs if the chief ever were to take off, that him being the point man as a second in command. But I think this discussion that we're having and the schedule that is in front of me for November, I think it's a good working schedule while we have the discussion. I think it is good for us to pause and look at these various areas that we may need to adjust. And I'm not talking financially, I'm talking procedurally. Just having all the procedures and everything in place, and not because we have had 6 officers since 2010, that means that is justification to continue that way. As a matter of fact, I don't see us by the end of next year surviving with 6 officers, not with the amount of work that's going on around us. So, but you don't want to also wait until the end of next year to hire an officer, because the chief do need experienced people and boots that has been on the ground for a while in order to properly respond to the residents' needs. So there is that opportunity that we need to, as we look at this, to pause and realize we need to take it off the table that this is not defunding the police department. Actually, what we're doing is making the police department better operationally. This police department is going to come out of this exercise that we're doing, a better police department. Having the way that the chief is now restructuring the coverage of the way that the police chief has restructured his schedule here, it's admirable. Because the chief has never said to any one of us he's not doing it, or he has never attempted not to do it. every meeting that we have gone to with the police chief, he has been the one proactively bringing things to us and showing us how he can get what's done by the decisions that we make. So the chief is doing his job. And now he has brought to us a schedule that can work while we take on the various discussions. I think we need to make sure that the public knows that this defunding of the police department is not on the agenda for this council. I know personally it's not on mine. And I would go down scratching and screaming if that were ever to come forward, that's what we're doing. This exercise is merely to look at the operations, because this is the first time I'm seeing a police schedule, and I'm the liaison. No, I wasn't tasked to go through the scheduling because that's the man who's in charge. I wasn't tasked to go through the scheduling and make sure that it's done properly. Because you have a competent chief who has changed our police department for the better over the last 4 years. And with that, we are giving him the right tools in order to accomplish what he needs. And that's what we're doing. We're just offering discussions. And I know people are going to bicker and talk and use the word defund and use other discussions. I don't think that's the exercise. The exercise is really proper accountability. And I hate to say it this way, but in the past, there has been a lot of freedoms in doing certain things, and now it's coming back to holding the police department accountable. So I just think that what we're doing is right, and I do strongly believe we need to replace Officer O'Neill, who has been a stalwart in our community. The man has taken on so much and has done so much for community policing. I think we need to replace him, but in the process and while we discuss and go through this exercise, whatever it is that we can do to make sure the chief succeeds, that's what we need to do. Thank you for allowing me.
Okay. Yeah, and I want to add to that, like you said, in the future, we're already looking at Van Meter bringing in some more houses, so we will have to reassess this, and most likely we will need to keep a six-man force easily. But that's something that this exercise, I think, is a good exercise to have at this time.
And maybe what we need to be looking at now is 2022, where do we want to reach? We want to reach 7 officers, including the chief? Do we want to reach 8 officers, including the chief, at the end of, or the beginning of 2022? Is that our end goal? And if that's the goal, then we need to start looking at bringing an admin person in. You know, relieving the chief of some of the admin duties that he can hand over to a civilian, and while he's supporting the guys on the street, or, you know, one of the big things that chief has been doing a lot, which we never had it before, was reaching out to all the other chief of police and gaining expertise from them. So.
Yeah. Bob's been anxious.
Just to be clear, and I understand your point, Mr. Mayor, but when I had said, it's not solely because we have it in the budget that we should fill that position. I think there's a demonstrated demand, and to kind of rehash what other council members have already said, I am still of the opinion that our service demands are going to increase.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still concerned about, you know, we seem to be in the region insulated in our economy, and so I am concerned revenues. Are we going to see a balloon effect where we've enjoyed a steady stream despite our businesses being impacted? We're starting to see a steady stream. So I appreciate the other dynamic too. What happens if the bubble bursts, our revenues tank, and then we're having to cut? I hope we don't get there, but I think in terms of our immediate service demands, we need to fill that position. And I hope we don't get to that other scenario, but I just want to make it clear, it's not just because of the budget. I don't think it's what you meant, Mr. Mayor, but just because it's open the budget, it's not the only reason to fill the position. Thank you.
Okay, Bob.
Let me try and wrap this up into one big package. Roberto, please correct me if I'm wrong. I just did some back of the envelope math on where we were as of the end of September. And one of the few things that we didn't look at, and one of the things that we absolutely did not touch in the budget reconciliation were the regular salaries and wages. By my calculation, had Corey remained, we were projecting at 12% over what we had budgeted, correct? I'm guessing. At least from the numbers I had through September. That being said, it's without a doubt that within the next 18 months, and probably sooner, we're going to need at least one more officer. The question is, do we budget for it at the beginning of the next fiscal year? Do we budget for it halfway through the next fiscal year? And do we start laying down a scenario and a revenue stream to fund not just one, but probably two, and depending on how much gets built and how quickly it gets built, even more than that. And with each officer we add, the admin burden on the department as a whole increases. I think that's without argument. So I think the other question that that we're going to have to answer as a council is, are we at that point, or are we at that juncture, given the increased reporting that's now mandated by the legislature, given the increased admin stuff that, as a result of our liabilities and everything else, all the other paperwork functions that have now been passed down to us as largely unfunded mandates. It's sort of, we're going to have to establish the priority. Which comes first? Do we need an additional officer? Do we need an admin? Do we need the admin first? Where are we going to get the most bang for the buck? And understanding that the weather's about to change. And how is that going to impact our revenue stream? Because it doesn't look like COVID's ending anytime soon. And it certainly doesn't look like any of the restrictions that are brought on by the governor's executive orders are changing anytime soon. And I am conservative by nature, and I would rather not see us go down a fiscal hole because we're overestimating what we're going to get in the winter months. Well, I mean, when it turns cold, people are going to stop going to the restaurants. There's not going to be people sitting outside at tables when it's 25 and 30 degrees. So I guess we've got a lot of moving parts here that we're going to have to consider and determine what we want to do, both from a fiscal standpoint, from a manpower standpoint, from a policy standpoint. So I think everybody's going to need to start racking and stacking their priorities to include, but not limited to, what is our fiscal capacity? Do we need an admin immediately? How long can we put off, if we can, another officer, and at what point in time do we have to add even another one there? There's a lot of math that needs to be done here. And Chief's kind of throwing me a curveball tonight that I, quite frankly, wasn't expecting. And I'm not ready for an answer tonight.
I'm not either.
I just had one question. Chief, what would you rather have, would it work better for you to have an officer or an admin person?
Okay.
Is it admin that overbearing for you and Jeff? Because that's a fair question.
No.
I don't.
No. Lieutenant and I are handling the admin duties right now. I'm saying it was an additional to what we're doing, but we're handling it. I think for the general well-being for the town, it's much more beneficial to have a certified police officer who can hit the street and handle things than it is for an admin who can only do admin work. If you're paying just a little over what it would be for that, or you're going to add one additionally, then to me it's more beneficial to have an officer than to have an employee who cannot do law enforcement duties. You didn't hear me saying in the last 4 years, and you're not going to hear me say, I need to have a secretary. Would it be fantastic for me to have one? Yeah, I could kick a lot of duties to the secretary, but you don't hear me complaining about that. I've taken it and just run with it. It's an officer who's certified, who can help at any time to fill in gaps in the schedule, and that officer would be on the schedule. That would then allow the lieutenant and myself to fill in the gaps is much more beneficial, in my opinion, when I deal with just the public safety aspect of it than for an admin person.
Thank you.
Council, I'd like to clarify something Councilman Ware stated. As of September 30th, Chief, with the staff he had, was on track to hit the 25%.
Could be my math.
Yeah, the only thing that offsets this number actually is because the first pay check
Pay
we
period
have,
was for June, okay.
so that throws off.
That explains it.
That gets corrected in the CAFR, so I just wanted to make sure that's clear.
That
he was on
that
track.
changes the calculation. You're
And
correct.
salaries have been the same for 2 years, so if something has been miscalculated, it isn't on the police department's fault.
No, I mean, I didn't factor in the June hours, which explains the overage.
No, it wasn't a shot at Roberta.
Yeah. On the chance that maybe I'll disrupt some things here, I'm not necessarily convinced where we need to go in future. I think we better need to understand the mission. We better need to understand the criteria for that need. As Marchand said earlier, determination of need, right? I think that's the term you used earlier. I'd like to be able to see us maybe utilize some of those tax dollars that we're sending towards Prince William County Way and, make a determination there on how best that we can get some of that back in town. So I'm not sitting here tonight, I'm not prepared to go forward. I'm glad the chief shared with us the concept of another officer rather than an admin. I think that, to a certain extent, makes some sense operationally, too. It gives you more flexibility. And I understand where Bob is coming from, because I happen to be somewhat conservative by nature myself, financially. And
We won't talk about the other stuff.
exactly. And, I think it's important that we look at it. That's what we have to do. We have to look at it. We have to evaluate it. That's what we're elected to do. And so I'm going to throw it on the table here. I'm not convinced we have to go beyond the 6. I'd like to see the justification and criteria for that and the determination of going beyond that, and why we can't rely and demand more from the county to assist our officers. After all, we're paying quite a bit of money to the county for that public safety line item. And that'll be it for tonight.
Right. If my math was correct, and I'm doing it quickly on a phone calculator, so I'm not sure, but if you're saying 21% of the tax bill goes to public safety, then on a $500,000 home, that's roughly $1,200 a year.
Per person, per resident. $1,200 a year per resident, times
Whatever the residents.
800, roughly.
Well, no, actually, no. The average home assessed at $500,000 would pay $1,200 in county taxes. So if you divide that by 2 or 3, you're right around the average they're already paying here on a per capita basis. So you're doubling the per capita.
Right, and so we would have to strip out the fire department, of course, out of that number.
And
No,
dispatch.
actually, no. Fire department is not included in that calculation.
It's not in the 21?
No, we separated that out.
Oh,
They run dispatch for us.
yeah.
We also use their jail. They
Right.
house inmates for us. And that's just whatever court costs, like to pay deputies to run their courts. So there are things that money goes for. I mean, dispatch
Right.
alone, if we were to have our own dispatchers, you'd need at least 4 at 60,000 apiece or
And we had to
more.
fight for that.
Yes.
Believe me,
With $1 million dispatch.
you don't have to
center,
remind me
you know.
how much that we saved on that.
So I'm not negating your point, just saying there are things they provide for us.
Because we
That
pay,
we- that we
because we
could.
pay for it.
Part of that 1,200, it's not just, we're not getting anything for that 1,200.
Well, we are getting, you're absolutely correct. We are getting some return on that. We're not getting the optimal.
They also get backs from us, too. We
Exactly.
back them a lot.
Exactly
A
the
lot.
point. And I think we've all had that discussion before, when we're out of town, when we're not out of town, response, all that kind of stuff. Point being is, I think it's necessary to be on the table to have that conversation. It's got to be in the mix. We have to have that as part of our discussion and making those determinations going forward.
Chief, could you do me a favor? Could you get me an estimate on just, for my personal curiosity, before, I don't know when we're going to handle this, so to be safe, I would say before next Monday. Could you get me sort of a sense of what it would cost for an admin, just so I've got a number I can plug into my formula?
How much do you want to pay him? Again,
What would it
that's not-
take to get somebody qualified,
Is that part-time or full-time?
full-time? Or part, I mean, I don't care.
I mean, I think Donna was making somewhere around 45,000,
Okay.
which at the time was more than any of the police officers except for one, and then her benefits. So you're talking, what, 70,000 total, almost 80? Yeah.
Can you, Roberto, can you work up a number for
And
me?
at that point,
Maybe it's better for Roberto to do it.
I can help get an estimate.
Just work me up an estimate.
Yep, will do.
At that point, let me just clarify this. So what you're saying, Chief, at that stage, in looking at hiring an admin at 75,000, including benefits, it would be better to hire a police officer and still have the ability to respond should the need arise.
yes, sir.
Thank you.
For a little, and I would, like, right now, I currently have a candidate who looks great. I could hire him tomorrow. He'd start around 54. If you were starting an admin, let's say 45, so you're 10,000 over him, and you get so much more flexibility. And again, if I were up here saying I am completely overwhelmed, then we could talk, but I'm not overwhelmed because I have a second admin person to help me with it. So that's, you know.
But not only that, you mentioned also that the pool that you're pulling from, it's drying out.
Recruitment is down all across the United States, based on things that are happening with police in general and the civil unrest. And quite frankly, councils and cities and boards not supporting and they're actually walking back support for the police. People are just not, they're not
It's not
wanting to
attractive.
go
It's not
into
an
that.
attractive career right now.
Yes, sir.
But not just that, with the limited pool that you're pulling from, is it highly possible that you don't even have this pool come December?
Oh, I lose all the pool. Matter of fact, I would call these people and say, you know, you could please, I mean, they're looking for jobs now. These aren't.
Right.
Yeah. I would say, you know, please move on and look for a job. We may or may not post sometime in December or January or whenever. I definitely would lose the pool, that's for sure.
Right now, the pool you have is, you've interviewed 3?
I haven't interviewed at all. I was asked to put off interviews until.
Got it. So I guess that's my question, Mr. Mayor, is what's our directive now?
That's a good question.
And that's exactly what I wanted to ask. Did you have something to comment on beforehand?
I just wanted to see where we're at. Are we,
Yeah, I want to find out what
are we
directive.
moving forward with the rehire? Or are we waiting to hold off till we get this information? I was just curious where we're at.
I'd like a decision made on Monday, one way or the other, if we're going to pursue it or not, at least with respect to the hiring.
That would sure help me.
Definitely. It's a little bit unfair to you because, and I know that it's hard with having officers already send in their application, but there's nothing for you to tell them.
Yeah, and of course, a decision doesn't need to be made Monday. It's just a directive, so, you know.
Yeah, just the direction we're going to go.
So you don't feel we have enough now from
I
our
don't.
discussions? And you're not happy?
But that's just me. I mean,
I'm always happy. Why?
He's here.
I want to try and get consensus on what direction.
You know, I think we've got the coverage. I understand the lag and all that other stuff, and I've heard the arguments on all sides of the equation. I still think we need more information to proceed with the hiring. I haven't seen the demonstration yet that it can't be handled with the part-timers. I'd like to see that personally. That's just me. I think it's good that Chief and Jeff are out there. I think it's good. It's actually very good to be out there in the community more so.
We're out there.
Yeah, I know.
Even without this.
And I think it's even better with both of you guys out there, out of the cars, getting to talk to other folks that you might not see all the time.
My only rebuttal to that is when a complaint happens, when a citizen has a complaint, they want to complain to a supervisor. If it's myself and Shaver, which is almost the majority of Monday through Friday that are working the November schedule, if we're both on a call and a complaint happens, then you're complaining on the chief or you're complaining on the lieutenant, and the chief was also there. And that's when you guys are going to have to get involved. Where if you have a level of stop.
I'm just kidding.
I'm just kidding.
No, you know what I'm saying?
For the record, I pointed at the
If
mayor.
you have a level of that's why it's not, it definitely can happen, it's just not ideal that your top man is actually involved in a call, or kicking in a door for a SWAT call out or anything. It's always better that I step back and observe what's going on, second layer being the lieutenant to observe what the officers are doing, just so you have layers.
So, all right, fair point.
I have one last thing. My third last thing, I know. Right now, you have 3 people in your pool. Why can we not direct him to do the interviews? And if one of them meet his, because I have all the confidence, and I think everybody does up here, have all the confidence in the world that this chief knows how he built his team. He's not going to hire somebody if they're not the right fit for the job and the right fit for this town. He interviews these 3. If he goes forward with it, then, you know, he would, I don't know how long the interviews take or whatever, or who's on the interview panel, but if he's confident that one of these 3 can fulfill his needs and the town's needs, at least we've done the interviews. You know, we can move forward. If you know, next Monday, if that's what it's going to be, a vote, and we vote that, yeah, hire him, then he's that much further ahead.
The only danger with that, and maybe the chief can correct me if I'm wrong, is when you start doing, when you're at the level of doing an interview and then you get directive from the council to hold off for a period of time, it is crushing to the applicant.
I'm going to wait until next Monday. I wouldn't move forward. I appreciate what you're saying. I'm not going to do anything more until I have one way or the other. And you know what? It's another week for and maybe another application to come in. So I just, I don't want to play with an officer's future or a potential officer's future. I'm just going to hold off. I just need a direction from you of which way that you guys want me to go. And we'll go from there after next Monday.
That's fair.
Okay, so I think we got a lot to think about, so I'd prefer not to make the decision tonight. In the background, you guys can toss around what you feel is best and what you want to reveal to each other. And so let's make Monday a decision point, which we need to make a decision. Okay? Is everybody in agreement with that?
Can we take a 5-minute break?
Okay. Bio break.
Before you go, Marshawn, the chief had asked for a closing statement on this topic.
So I just wanted to say, as you're going off to think about this for the week, of course, my opinion is that we need to fill the slot. And I'm telling you that because we're not getting slower. We're going to be getting busier as construction and this town goes to total build out. We're just getting busier. Calls for service are going to increase. Civil unrest is going up and will continue to go up. We're more divided in this country than ever. And I think there's always going to be an increase in civil unrest. Mental health calls are going up, and they're not slowing down. Crashes are going up and will continue to go up in this town, especially because of all the traffic that's going through. Domestics are going up, and that's mostly because people are staying home now and they're around each other more. But everything that in this town that we're seeing is an increase. And it will continue to increase. And I agree that we're going to need maybe additional officers, but we're definitely going to need at least 6, and with myself included. Now, that being said, with this council, myself and the lieutenant have had to think outside the box of what we've normally done, okay? And that's what we're doing. And so I don't. That's why when I plug myself in and Lieutenant Shaver into the schedule, and then you say, well, not really sure why you're only using the part-timers as much, using more, I'm thinking, man, I thought I'm not using the part-time. My part-time schedule is less than it was because I'm trying to think outside the box by plugging myself in. Would I love to maybe grab an additional 2 part-time guys, add some more part-time money into the budget, and we could go back to where it was? Sure, but I'm trying to adjust, and will adjust and think outside the box of what you're looking for. So, well, all I'm saying is that I'm not negating anything, any other importancy of any project in this town, okay? Please don't think that. I've said before, the police department has gotten where we needed to be over the last 3 years, and I understand that if we need to take a step back, that I'm totally willing to do that. But there are, in my opinion, and public safety is just my thing, maintaining 24-hour coverage with 2 to 3 minute response times and personal service for this department and our businesses and rattling doors is much more important to me, in my opinion, than a sidewalk in front of the park. Again, I'm not negating the importance of anything. I'm just saying that this is my opinion because I'm in public safety. So, and I think it probably means more to someone whose door's getting kicked in the middle of the night, whether an officer can respond to them and sit in front of their house for 2 hours while they're waiting for the husband to come back or whoever it is to come back, then whether they can stay on a sidewalk and I keep using that again. I know that we need to take a step back, and I haven't. I've been transparent with everything we've doing. You've gotten everything I have. So I'm just asking, that you please put some heavy consideration into giving us back our full staff. Some of the things that were brought up, a lot of these towns that Councilman Weir brought up don't have 24-hour coverage. They're not 24/7. So and somewhere like Occoquan has got like 12 part-time guys just to be able to cover some day shifts that they have, because part-timers they only can work when they can work. They have full-time positions. We control a person that was full-time because they work for us. We can put them where they need to be. I understand that there's been some increased spending, to Bob's point, over the last 3 years, but that was because, and when you were on council, I had said it before, there was a whole lot of not spending on the police department for years. When I got here, we were begging for light bars and used equipment and flashlights from other vests from other jurisdictions. I needed an influx of money to get us to where we needed to be. We did have a big car expense because they were old. They were breaking down at the stoplight, right? But I don't need to touch another car for another 4 years. We have equipment now and things, but I needed money to go to that. You haven't seen a huge spending from me this year. Everything at the end of every report, no costs over $3,000 this year, or this week. But that's because I've spent the time getting us and the money getting us to where we need to be. So I'm asking that. I understand we need to save money, but sometimes if you're just looking at numbers on a paper, it doesn't tell the whole story of how people feel. And every single one of you council members have had personal service from this police department that has helped you in your time of need.
Some of us more than others.
Some of you have had bad experiences with the police department.
I haven't had one of those yet.
Those were warranted.
Yeah. But we've been there, not just for the people this can, but you specifically, each and every one of you. I know we've had personal experiences where you've been helped. But you're not going to get that personal service from Prince William's not showing up at your business roundtable to tell you how many times they've rattled a business's door. All right, they're just not going to do that. We responded to 2 calls this weekend where there was 2-hour waits for someone who called the police department, one of which was someone breaking into a vehicle and the alarm was going off. So just public safety is what I do. So I'm begging you to fill the slot. So my last thing is, if you were to leave it at what it is now, all right, this is not ideal for staffing, but I'll make it work as hard as I can, and I'll do this with as minimal impact to the police, to public safety as possible. But there will be impact, and this is not sustainable in the long term because there's nobody taking off on November's schedule. There's nobody sick on November's schedule. There's nobody going to training that needs to be filled by another officer. So, can it work? Yes. Can we make it work? Sure. But it's not sustainable in the long term, I think, for 24-hour coverage and everything. And so if you're not going to give it to me, then I need to know, are you guys comfortable with not having a night shift at times when we need it? Because, I went down that road with another jurisdiction, and we had a shooting on a day where there was no officer on duty, and it didn't work out well for council when the residents were like, where was the officer? So you need to be comfortable. Are you comfortable with us having holes in the schedule? Because 24-hour coverage has been in effect for the whole 4 years I've been here. So, and if we're not going to do it, there's other towns that do it, but I just need to know, do I need to not work, really, really hard on filling a hole? Are you guys comfortable with it not being filled? But again, I just ask that you let me have the position, fill the position. It's already budgeted. I need it to keep the continuity of the department up. But again, we'll always work with what you give us.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. 5-minute break?
5-minute break.
Thank you.
Go, Marshawn. Run.
Run.
Tracy just cringed every time I talk. She just cringed.
Everyone, let's calm down now. Let's start this meeting back up. We'll go to the next agenda item, which is the personnel policy. Chris?
Since we don't have enough work to do, this is something that I was reviewing. We adopted this, when I say we, town council and staff adopted this personnel policy back in 2010. And there was one section that was added in 2014. So the fact that it's been over a decade since we've really reviewed it for updates. Just one of the major things, without getting too much in detail, is the majority of staff was part-time back then. And now we have 4 salaried individuals on the admin side, as well as we've already went into detail about the police department changes over the past couple of years. So I just think it's time that we reevaluate it. We've got some resources that we can use, so we'll reach out to Versa to basically have kind of a draft, just basic policy that they have, which is this our insurance company. So we'll use their resources so it doesn't take too much time out of anything else, and then we can evaluate that and add different things to it if necessary. So that's just something that I think we should look at.
Mr. Mayor, real quick, could you explain the nature of the policy?
It's the policies and procedures for the employees.
The personnel, it's the vacation thing, right?
Yeah.
Well, so that was one of the things that brought it up. However, that was resolved. But for example, another example is where employees could donate sick leave to another employee as well as to a sick leave bank. However, there was no policy or program that was established. So in the actual personnel policy, it says in 2010 that there will be a policy established to articulate when it's used and when it's able to be used and all that, when it hasn't been addressed in a decade. So I think we need to bring that back to 2020 standards. And like I said, the other one is hourly versus salary. There's several things like that that we just need to bring it to the times.
Can you have that done in time for the December meeting? January meeting?
I will try for January meeting, yes, sir.
Okay, then we'll.
Without objection?
Yeah, I mistook this line. I thought we were going to dive quickly into the vacation transfer plan.
Yes.
Just to make sure that that's enacted.
So, yes, this is an overhaul. In regards to the sick time, I'll just bring everybody up to speed. What ended up happening is when Officer O'Neill left, he wanted to donate sick leave to individuals that needed it, and that's as far as I'll go. And with no restriction and no limits on what could be donated, basically his request was approved, and the sick leave was given to the individuals that needed it. So that's just something that we had to take care of, because in the personnel policy it says they're able to do it with no limits, no justifications, no requirements. There's nothing there, and it hadn't been addressed in 10 years. But since it said that employees are able to do it, so once all the information was found out, that's why we had to move forward that way. But that is something in regards to the sick leave policy that I do think we need to tighten up. amongst other things. With it being a decade old, once I started down the rabbit hole, the list started piling up to, it's just going to be a major overhaul anyway, so we might as well start now.
Have fun over Christmas, January.
Yeah.
Have fun over Christmas, get it done by January.
Well, I think it'd be good to have it sooner. Well, I'm fine with the timeline in January or whatever, but just to be sure that there are no budget implications. I mean, I'm going to look at it through that lens to see if there are any. I think that's important. It may or may not, I don't know, but that should be part of that too.
Trying hard to think of where it would.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's the only thing that budgetarily wise that may be impacted would be like hours of vacation earned or hours of sick time, but I wouldn't change that. It would be more so.
They've already been allocated in the budget anyway, so.
Yeah.
They have in the vacation, that actually specifically maxed out at 160, so that is already, but, taken into account in the budget.
Okay.
Yes, and like I said, if there was anything that would budgetarily impact anything, I would explicitly, that would be separate items that we would discuss, so.
Yeah.
Good. Mr. Mayor, is there, I mean, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Can Chris give a couple of examples and come with recommendations?
So that's where I'm going to reach out to Versa and ask them kind of for their recommended, it's our insurance company, and they're the insurance companies for the majority of the localities in the state of Virginia. So just ask them if they have a draft personnel policy that they recommend, and then we can always cater it to fit the town's needs, not just take it and run, but, I think as long as I can get that and then work off that, I could get it relatively quickly.
And then you give us recommendations or a couple of options, and so,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and just to save time, since it's already after 10, we'll move this on, let you work it, and we'll deal with it in January.
Is that one of these? That's what you're
Yes.
doing? Okay, good.
So, we'll move on then, public meeting space in Town Hall.
So this is something that several people have requested in the past. They have asked if we have meeting space for HOAs, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, things like that. This is something that we do have space to meet. However, there are certain implications that we do have. For example, one of you guys' top priorities was the security, cybersecurity, as well as town hall security and everything else. I'm still waiting on getting the third quote for the security cameras, but those are just some of the things that we're still looking at. So when you have public meeting space, even if it's provided for free, it has to be ADA compliant. You cannot have meeting space that is not ADA compliant. With that, we have a conference room upstairs, but since it's not ADA compliant, that's not a viable option for meeting space. This room is ADA compliant. However, we have the Google Chromebooks. We have access, the different computers and things that we have here, our cameras. So individuals would have direct access to our network, essentially, if we gave unfettered access for an hour, 2 hours. And then we also have some keys that are available for the police department in case they need it for other buildings in town. The two viable options that I think we have for meeting space, if council so inclined, would be the museum or the park building. Now, basically what I would need to do is I need to get a contractor or someone in here to check and verify that the museum and or the park building are ADA compliant, and if they are not, what they need to become ADA compliant. One thing that we will need to do when it comes to park building is the police department does store some items in there, so we would have to have some doors with locks and kind of block it off a little bit. I mean, we can get creative with how we block it off, but you'd have to have a restroom, and then we have 2 rooms that would be able to be utilized for meeting space. So I think, if I just move forward and get an idea of what it would cost to have meeting space for the museum and or the park building, those would be 2 viable options that I can kind of give you a price tag on what it would cost the town to be able to provide meeting space.
Yeah, well, I'm assuming the museum would have the same type of concerns as this space here with the displays and the artifacts.
And that is something as well, that the only thing is with the cybersecurity being one of you guys' top priorities, that was the reason why I just said this is up there. But I agree, if we're going to have those displays out and everything, then you do run the risk of damage or.
Not just displays, but now we're leasing it to another user, and if their equipment is used or damaged, it
Exactly.
would be on us at the museum.
Yeah.
Bob?
I'm going to probably surprise a lot of people. Residents paid for this place. That there are issues with equipment being left out and they're being accessed is on us. If I have never had a problem with them using this facility for HO meetings and that sort of stuff, on a basis that they use it when we're not using it. They pay their taxes. I don't have one bit of a problem with them using this particular space. If we have to do something to ensure that they can't access the system, so be it, that's on us. But in the past, we made the space available. It didn't become an issue until somebody pitched a fit about having to do the vacuuming or cleaning the floor after some kid's party. We don't have a kitchen anymore, so there's no food. I don't have any particular qualms about renting this space out on an as-available basis. We simply have to do something about locking the systems down.
Good point.
Yeah, and I think if we do lock the systems down, we still have accountability of who was in here
Yeah.
for any damage that does occur, right?
Yeah.
So like if a camera gets torn down, we at least can,
We'll have video footage of who did it.
Or would they not sign, not sign?
Yeah, wouldn't they sign some type of
Yeah.
accountability clause? Or
Exactly.
Do you have that
I
list,
mean,
Mr. Mayor?
we could do it where they sign a hold harmless agreement, yes.
Yeah,
However,
that would be-
these are your neighbors that are going to use it, so if somebody breaks it unintentionally, we're going to have to ask them for a significant amount of money to replace some of these cameras and the expertise it takes to replace them, which it's not insignificant. It's high dollar equipment.
I
That's,
think they need to consider that when they ask to use it.
Yeah,
I
especially
mean-
when they're as far out of the way as they are. I mean,
Exactly.
if they damage it, there was some mischief going on, and they should be accountable for it anyway.
Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly with Bob. Bob, that's like 3 times this year I've agreed with you.
Oh, my goodness.
We're going to have a Coke together sometime.
Oh, Jesus.
The drinking one.
But drinking, yes, yeah.
Stuff in my Coke.
You put it in, I'll buy the Coke, you bring yours. But he's right, this belongs to the town, but we have a responsibility to make sure that it's not damaged and that the upkeep and all. So if we have some type of statement they sign or something like that, I'm not opposed. Our own HOA asked me, and we usually don't have but 3 or 4 people, depending on if Julie and I are in town or not. And they'd love to come up and just sit right here and have a quick meeting.
So these are some, you want this? Please go ahead.
That's okay.
No, please.
I was just going to say, I feel like it encourages our citizens to use this building as well and to be more approachable to staff in general, so.
Yes.
I agree.
So when I was approached to ask this, to revitalize the use of the space, I came up with a couple bullet points that we should consider, and I would love to read them for each of us as we walk away, just to know what we could be thinking of in as far as if we so go the direction of using this space. The town hall should be permitted for use by town residents and organizations whose area of operations lies within the town limits. We should ensure that the town hall is not used by any organization that may not reflect the overall position of the town's non-biased views, particularly political ones. Only events in which the public can attend should be allowed to use the facilities. Use of the dais is prohibited, as well as the town's computers that are used by the council, commissioners, and board members. Entry codes should, if possible, be created and given to the responsible party, and a time limit placed on the ability to use the code. If this is not feasible, the on-duty police officer could be assigned the task of granting access and securing after they leave. All participants should adhere to the state's mandated requirement for a public meeting during this time. That means there has to be a limit as to the number of individuals allowed in the room at any one time. Residents or organizations are responsible for removing all trash from the room at the end of this meeting, their meeting, and refusal may result in the privilege being revoked. Town staff, to include police officers, should not be required to attend any of these meetings. The use of offices and equipment are not included in this agreement. This is only a room space with shelter, lighting, seating, and bathroom facilities that's being made available to residents and organizations. The town manager has the right to rescind this courtesy should he think the facilities are not being used for its original intent.
Mr. Mayor, without objection, I would direct that staff work with Morris, develop a list of procedures and a contract, and have it for us at the next work session, and we can move on to the next item.
Actually, what I would like to see, I'd like to see what the cost would be and identify the items that you think need to be secured in this facility, and what could we do to make sure they're secured, and if there's any costs with that. And compare it against the museum and compare it against the house in the property, the park. That's what I would like to see.
That's a good suggestion.
Fine
I
with
took
that,
a walk of the property this afternoon at the park. It's in really good condition, except the team that we had there painting didn't cover the floors, so it's going to take that much more work to get up all the gunk from off the floor. So, I mean, it seemed like a good painting job. I think they missed most of the walls and it's on the floor, but that's something that we have to discuss. But Joe, I think that's a good idea as
This
far
way
as
we have a
moving
better
forward.
sense of it. But in the meantime, you can still do what Bob just suggested, put together the items, the responsibilities.
Because this would work here and there.
Forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to need a contract anyway of some sort, and there is a contract lying in some file cabinet somewhere.
Or on a server.
Or on a well, yeah. You want to go looking for the server? Because I don't. But somewhere there's the old contract that we had that I think the last structured contract was a little overzealous in terms of the amounts required for a resident to secure this place.
I don't know about it.
I'm not.
I think they pay enough in taxes.
Yeah, I don't think we should be charging HOAs to, because there are several HOAs with no meeting facilities in town. I can think of at least 3, probably more than that. 1, 2, 3. I can think of 4 off the top of my head that don't have a community building of any sort. And we used to.
We don't.
I mean,
You don't?
Longstreet. I know Longstreet used to have their meetings here. I believe Haymarket Station did at one point in
Yeah,
time.
we were the ones that got kicked out.
And I never agreed with the reasoning for kicking the HOAs out.
Marchant, you had something to say?
So you're suggesting no fee?
For an organization like an HOA, no. For if somebody wants to have their kid's birthday party or bat mitzvah in here, well, that's a different story. But or for community organizations, nonprofits. I mean, we're gonna have to develop a schedule of some sort, I guess.
Yes.
So I would think in the immediate, to Joe, I think to your point, that analysis is fine, but I think that shouldn't necessarily hold up the use of this building. I think we could make use of that in short order.
Well, I think he's going to have to identify exactly what the concerns are in this building and figure out a way to make sure they're secured.
Oh, I don't disagree. I'm just saying, I think of the 3, this immediately seems to be one that could both position to move quickly. The one across the street, we still got Haymarket Coffee in there, and for that duration. And I think the building, the cost of that was run, that's a farther discussion, the park discussion. I have some thoughts about making that a more usable space, because it's cut up still like a house. So, and
But that's a long-term expensive
That's a
project.
long-term expense. It would be nice if we could do some immediate sorts of things. But last time, as I remember, last time when we used to rent the space, they just put, partition up here so you wouldn't come past. If we do want to make a distinction between meetings and parties, or we charge a cleaning fee for a party, I think that's reasonable. So, but yes, the only other question I would have is COVID. What are the COVID restrictions on having people here? I assumed as long as you meet your distance policies and your minimum, you can do that fairly quickly. So.
Yeah, where's our occupancy permit? It shows how many people are allowed in here.
Do we have it posted?
Oh, no, we're a town. We don't need to do it. Only the.
It actually used to be posted in here a long time ago.
Yeah, Joe. Yeah, Joe.
Now, I know we just levied a lot of responsibility on the town manager. I'd like his comments on this. You had some comments?
No, I think we'll have to look at the procedure, the forms, and then we'll have to do a hold harmless agreement to make sure that everybody's aware that they're going to be charged with basically 100% of the damage if something is, because that's the other thing that with hold harmless agreements, it kind of does take the assumption that if, let's say they were to show up at 4:35 for an event at 5 o'clock, and then we come back tomorrow at 8 in the morning and something's damaged, it is their responsibility. So that's, some of those things that now if we have the police officers that are able to make sure that it's checked and secured after the meeting, that's great, but, there's certain things that, for example, like if we were to try and get these computers into the closet with extended cords and stuff like that, but you still have monitors and cables and stuff like that. So there's a laundry list of things that we're going to have to go down. In regards to the museum, they don't keep all that much stuff up there. I mean, if we basically provide a lock on the upstairs door, I think that actually would be a pretty viable option, but the displays are out, so that's something as well. So I'll work some stuff up so we can discuss it Monday, and then we can also share Councilman Morris's list to everybody so you guys can look at it, and if you feel one way or another, we can try and address that as well.
And make sure he's the point of contact.
The manager said he's going to send it to you.
And that's the only other thing is I do think that the discussion of the types of meetings that are held, because if this is a meeting space available for nonprofit organizations, HOA, stuff like that, that's one thing, but like birthday parties and stuff like that.
I'm less concerned about the birthday parties.
Yeah.
I'm more concerned about the civic and the HOAs, business groups, whatever.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think that should be the main focus.
I could live
to
without
get
the
them.
birthday party.
And
Well, you wouldn't be invited anyway.
Okay.
Humbugs.
Say it out loud. I'll rent the space to them for the going rate.
Let me know if you need me to take lead on it, and if you're okay.
Let's roll this on. So I guess, we'll leave it at that and see what you come back with on Monday. So we'll move on to the CARES Act draft agreement.
November work
November
session.
work session?
Yeah. So
This is October,
well, this is the work session for the November meeting.
but it's still the October work session, so the next one would be the November work session.
For the December meeting.
When do you want
Yeah.
it?
November 30th or December, which meeting? November 30th?
The November 30th work session.
There you go.
Okay. And now we got the CARES Act draft
Yes.
agreement.
So the CARES Act draft agreement with Prince William County IDA, this is what we talked about in regards to the disbursement plan. We need them to help us with the voucher program as well as the business grant. This is drafted right from Prince William County, and all we did was amend it for the town. We did get 3 comments from Mr. O'Leary, who is the executive director, president of the Prince William County IDA. Martin's reviewed it. He approves it. This is just something that you guys can look over, and if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. And I just got those 3 edits from Mr. O'Leary, so they will be added in there. So if anybody's interested, I can share them specifically.
Are we going to take action on this next Monday?
I would like to, yes, so that we can start the.
Fill in the blanks and let's go.
Just make sure it's been vetted for fit and form, and let's get it moving.
Let's get it moving.
Okay,
Do we need to go in a closed session
No.
for 5, 10, or 15 minutes, or just bag it?
I think we can bag it.
We will have Martin send something to you all, so just do me a favor and keep an eye out on your emails for tomorrow.
You mean like at 8 o'clock at night? No.
No.
We're at that point. I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor, say
Aye.
aye. Aye.